Du Jialua took the opportunity to gain quite a lot. This time, seeing that the space was about to close, Debeo had already tried to follow the last route to see if he could enter the depths of the space. Not only were there houses built by the Ying Tian sect disciples, but the place where the houses were built was also where the spiritual vein of the entire space was located. The places that were closer to the spiritual vein were naturally densely packed with 3,000-year-old spiritual herb gardens. At this moment, Debeo's body, which was rolling forward rapidly like a meatball, suddenly stopped. Du Jialua, who was chasing closely behind, took the opportunity to let out a breath. Just when he was about to speak, he heard Debeo whisper, "Be quiet." Hearing this, Du Jialua hurriedly restrained his aura and focused his voice. At the same time, he threw Debao to his mid-grade magic tool. Du Jialua had encountered similar situations a few times before. With Debao's talent, they had avoided many cultivators from other sections. Debao's nose twitched rapidly. A moment later, a sliver of surprise flashed across his eyes. He turned around and said to Du Jialua, "There seems to be a fellow disciple of yours being surrounded and attacked by 3 people in front. The situation doesn't look good." Du Jialua's expression became anxious. Enlightened Debeo, "Let's go and help him." Debeo glanced at Du Jialua and said, "We must help him, but it depends on how we help him. If we go up like this, a first-layer blood condensation realm miner repairs and a third-layer blood condensation realm rat demon can't do anything." Tian Yu's current situation was very bad. He was surrounded by 3 third-layer blood condensation realm mountain sect disciples. He wasn't good at fighting, and his cultivation was sealed. How could he fight against the 3 of them? Fortunately, Tian Yu had a third-layer blood condensation realm wasp with him. Even though the wasp was weaker than him, it became a great help to him. Tian Yu was like a crazed tiger. He was fighting with his life on the line. If the other 3 weren't confident in their victory, Tian Yu would have been killed a long time ago. Tian Yu casually touched his waist and swallowed a vitality-replenishing pill. It turned into a warm current that was absorbed and transformed by his bloodline, nourishing the magic power in his bloodline that was drying up. How many pills does this brat have on him? Isn't he afraid of the medicinal toxins accumulating in his body and killing him? One of the mountain sect disciples cursed as he defended against Tian Yu's frenzied attacks. Could this guy be an alchemist? I think he's a spoiled brat. He has a lot of good stuff on him, but his skills are lacking. Not necessarily. His sword techniques are very exquisite, but he looks like he hasn't practiced them for a long time. Why does he look so awkward? Humph. He's learned to protect himself to this extent. He deserves to die in our hands today. Everyone, put in more effort. Whether he's an alchemist or a spoiled brat, all the good stuff on him will belong to us after he dies. The greed in the 3's eyes intensified. They no longer fought with Tian Yu. The 3 of them attacked together, and a few more wounds appeared on Tian Yu's body. Tian Yu only had a sliver of consciousness left. If he could no longer defend against the 3's attacks, he would unseal his cultivation. When that happened, he would perish together with the 3 of them. Right at this moment, a strange spiritual energy suddenly exploded under everyone's feet. The 3 people who were attacking Tian Yu suddenly felt their bodies sink, as if they were carrying a heavy pressure on their backs. Their previously nimble movements suddenly became difficult to move. Not good. Someone's ambushing us. Who is it? Show yourself. The 3 of them circulated the magic power in their bodies to push away the huge force that was pressing down on them. Tian Yu, who had already given up all hope, suddenly became spirited. He used a sword technique and slashed a half-foot-long wound on a Mountain Universe sect disciple's body. Although the attack of this strange power disrupted the rhythm of the 3 people's attacks, after the 3 of them circulated their magic power, they were still able to resist this kind of magic. However, just as the 3 of them had shaken off the huge force, before they could even react, a figure was already rushing towards them. At the same time, an iron hammer magic artifact flew out of his hand, transforming into a giant hammer that was half a zhang in size in the air. Then, it fiercely smashed towards one of the Mountain Universe sect disciples. So it's another Ing Shan Immortal Academy disciple who's seeking death. He's only at the first stage of the blood condensation realm. He's simply courting death. Seeing that Du Jialua was attacking him, the Mountain Universe sect disciple hurriedly used all his strength. However, he still had a ferocious expression on his face as he raised the magic weapon in his hand and counterattacked Du Jialua. Dang! The Mountain Universe sect disciple instantly felt a huge force descending from the sky. His body was fiercely nailed into the ground by half a foot, and his magic power almost dissipated. The giant hammer returned, and the flying figure only paused for a moment before launching another attack at him. This time, the Mountain Universe sect disciple didn't dare to underestimate his opponent. He focused 120% of his attention and tried to reverse the passive effect of the hammer strike. Just as Du Jialua rushed over and launched a sneak attack on one of the Mountain Universe sect disciples, the other Mountain Universe sect disciple saw that Du Jialua's hammer strike had caused his companion to suffer. He wanted to deal with this first-stage blood condensation realm minor repairs first. However, before he could make a move, more than 10 talismans suddenly appeared in front of him. Fireballs, frost arrows, blood-sucking vines, golden light thorns, meteor techniques, and more than 10 other spells flew towards him. The power of each talisman was equivalent to an attack from an early-stage blood condensation cultivator. In an instant, the Mountain Universe sect disciple's soul was shattered. Fortunately, this Mountain Universe sect disciple wasn't a weakling. He wielded a spear magic weapon and shot out dozens of spear shadows, destroying the spells one by one. However, before he could even catch his breath, another 10 talismans flew towards him. The Mountain Universe sect disciple cursed at this wastrel. He felt so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. The Mountain Universe sect disciple tried to dodge, but just as he took a step forward, the ground beneath his feet suddenly collapsed. The Mountain Universe sect disciple cursed inwardly. Just as he was about to use his magic power to stabilize himself, the pressure on everyone suddenly increased. The Mountain Universe sect disciple staggered and fell into the pit. 2 pill-like beads were suddenly thrown out from the ground. Then, under the Mountain Universe sect disciple's confused gaze, the beads suddenly exploded into 2 sharp sword chi that sliced towards the Mountain Universe sect disciple's neck. What kind of strange spell was this? The Mountain Universe sect disciple wasn't a weakling. He shook the spear in his hand and destroyed one of the sword chi. However, his legs tightened, and it was too late for him to dodge the other sword chi. He could only try his best to avoid being hit in his vital organs, and one of his arms fell off his body. The Mountain Universe sect disciple knew that he couldn't escape. He used his magic power to break free from the shackles on his legs and tried to escape. However, he didn't have the chance to escape. Another pill flew towards him. This one was different from the previous 2 pills. This one suddenly exploded. It was a ball of black flames. The Mountain Universe sect disciple's face changed when the blood dripping from his shoulder was burned by the black flames. But before he could scream, his entire body suddenly turned black and turned into ashes in the flames. Debeo crawled out from the ground. He really had foresight. He made up his mind to collect everything that Lu Ping had thrown away. At the very least, these talismans and intentional battle pills that Lu Ping had been using for practice would be put to good use. However, he didn't think about it. He was a core forging stage beast cultivator. If he undid the seal, then even if hundreds of these things were thrown at him, they wouldn't be able to harm a single hair on his body. Seeing Debeo easily finish off his opponent, the other 2 Mountain Universe sect cultivators were shocked and they wanted to run away. At this time, how could Tianyu let go? Du Jialua was also doing his best to entangle his opponent with the help of a monster wasp. Debeo's rat eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness, and he dove into the ground. It was unknown where he went. The 2 Mountain Universe sect disciples suddenly panicked. They were immediately distracted by Debeo, who could appear at any time. Tianyu and Du Jialua's spirits rose, and their attacks became sharper. The 2 of them became more and more skilled. Chapter 7:16. Lu Dagui transformed into his original form and carried Lu Ping along the Ying River towards the Fist Valley space. Although the Ying River had many twists and turns in the Ying mountain range, Lu Ping could greatly reduce the time and distance if he flew. However, Lu Ping was naturally fond of water, and would rather carry Lu Dague downstream. When Lu Ping arrived at the entrance of the Fist Valley space, perfected Gu Han and perfected Jian Ming had already returned. However, the person who came from the Mountain Universe sect was not Pang Feiyun, but another late-stage core forging realm cultivator. When Lu Ping arrived, this cultivator looked at Lu Ping carefully. Lu Ping followed the gaze of the person, but did not take it to heart. In the Fist Valley space, although Du Jialua was only at the first stage of the blood condensation realm, he appeared to be quite calm when fighting against the Mountain Universe sect's third-stage blood condensation realm disciple. Several times, the cultivators from Mountain Universe Order had attempted to snatch the initiative from Du Jialua. However, Du Jialua was able to accurately control his attacks and defenses, allowing him to firmly suppress the cultivators from Mountain Universe Order. However, one of the main reasons why Du Jialua was able to suppress the Mountain Universe sect's cultivators was because the gravity technique that Debao had cast on them was still working. Compared to Du Jialua, Tian Yu's situation seemed to be better. After all, Tian Yu was a mid-stage blood condensation realm cultivator with his cultivation sealed. Although he was not good at fighting, after fighting for a while, Tian Yu's sword techniques seemed much sharper. However, when Debao made his move, he still helped Tian Yu first. After dealing with Tian Yu's opponent, the two of them turned around to deal with the last Mountain Universe sect's cultivator who was planning to escape. After collecting the spiritual herbs from the 3 Mountain Universe sect's cultivators, Tian Yu handed all the mid-grade magic tools they used to Du Jialua. Du Jialua wanted to decline, but Debao smiled and said, he might not be strong, but he is still a mid-blood condensation realm cultivator. He has always had good magic tools. You can keep these magic tools for yourself. He has better ones. Du Jialua was still hesitating, but Tian Yu had already smiled and said, I am an alchemist. I originally did not need these things. Junior brother, feel free to take them. Debao rummaged through the storage artifact under his neck for a long time and finally took out a jade bottle. He took out a pill and threw it to Tian Yu. This is the poison cleansing pill that boss refined back then. It's the most suitable for someone like you who swallowed a large number of pills in a short period of time, resulting in the accumulation of pill toxins. From Du Jialua's point of view, this senior brother in front of him seemed to be very familiar with perfected Debao. He directly swallowed the pill that perfected Debao handed to him and started refining it. Although Debao knew that these two people in front of him were people that Lu Ping valued, and there was a high chance that they would become Lu Ping's disciples in the future, Lu Ping did not say anything about the matter. Debao also did not know what Lu Ping's rules were. Hence, Debao did not mention these things at all. The three of them continued to recover their magic power. Tian Yu also wanted to use this opportunity to recover from his injuries. In the blink of an eye, 6 hours passed. Debao and Du Jialua had already recovered. Tian Yu, on the other hand, was still circulating his cultivation technique to treat his internal injuries. This was especially so because he had swallowed a large number of pills that he did not have time to refine in time. As a result, a lot of pill toxins had accumulated in his body. Fortunately, perfected Debao had collected the blood condensation realm pills that Lu Ping had refined in the past. Now, it came in handy. Tian Yu's face changed from green to white. A moment later, a surge of blood energy suddenly rushed into his body. Tian Yu's eyes suddenly opened, and he swallowed a mouthful of dirty blood. Tian Yu's face was still pale, but his spirit was much better than before. Debao nodded his head slightly and said, the pill toxins have been forced out. Although your injuries have not fully recovered, at least it will not hinder your cultivation in the future. The two of them followed behind Debao, moving along the edge of the spatial cracks. After an unknown period of time, Debao finally stopped and said, all right, it should be here. Let's hope that we can directly reach the deepest part of the spatial crack this time. Tian Yu hesitated for a moment and said, perfected Debao, where are we going? Did Uncle Master Xianping give us any orders? Perfected Debao rolled his eyes. It was unknown how his rat eyes could roll so much. He said, of course it's boss's orders. Otherwise, why would I, Lu Debao, a dignified core forging realm beast cultivator, pay such a huge price and take such a big risk to come to this place? All right, don't ask anymore. This place is full of dangers. Follow me closely and pass through the cracks in the spatial crack. If we can reach our destination, we will naturally understand the mission this time. In an area surrounded by spatial cracks, 3 Immortal Academy disciples carefully gathered a patch of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs and placed them into the spirit sealing boxes that Lu Ping gave them. These 3 were the only Immortal Academy disciples who had reached the 3rd layer of the blood condensation realm. After placing the last 3,000-year-old spirit herb into his spirit sealing box, Junior Brother Qian hurriedly stood up and stretched. He said, "We're finally done. Senior Brother Sun, do you think we suffered a loss this time? It's been 3 whole months, but we only found 2 spirit herb gardens hidden in the spatial cracks. There are only a few hundred spirit herbs in total, and we were almost ambushed by a group of Gu clan cultivators." Before Senior Brother Sun could speak, Junior Brother Zhou spoke first. "Suffered a loss? This is a 3,000-year-old spirit herb. If we were to exchange it with a 1,000-year-old spirit herb, it would be worth 10 times. Our few hundred 3,000-year-old spirit herbs are worth close to 10,000 1,000-year-old spirit herbs, let alone 500-year-old spirit herbs." Junior Brother Qian laughed and said, "Haha, that's true, that's true. I just feel that it's a pity. We spent more than 2 months searching for the 7 secret locations that Sage Xinping gave us, but only 2 of them exist. The others have all been sealed by the spatial cracks. If the other 5 were not sealed by the spatial cracks, then our harvest would be really great." Junior Brother Zhou curled his lips. On the surface, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this greedy guy, but his heart was filled with regret like Junior Brother Qian. He looked at Senior Brother Sun beside him and saw that he was thinking about something with his head lowered. He asked curiously, "Senior Brother Sun, what are you thinking about?" Senior Brother Sun said in a low voice, "You said that the disciples of Ing He, Ing Shan, and Dao Space Sects had entered this space at least 8 times, if not 10 times. How come they didn't discover these spirit herb gardens hidden between the spatial cracks? Daoist Xinping had never entered it, so how could he give each of us a map of this space, and even have 7 hidden secret places?" Junior Brother Qian raised his eyebrows and said, "Isn't that obvious? The depths of these 2 secret places are so dangerous. If we didn't have Elder Schwamping's map in our hands, how would we dare to enter the depths of the spatial cracks?" Senior Brother Sun nodded and said, "Junior Brother Qian is right, but the key question is, how did Elder Xinping know the situation in this space so clearly?" Junior Martial Brother Qian and Junior Martial Brother Zhou looked at each other. After a long while, Junior Martial Brother Zhou said, "How can we know about these things? Elder Xinping has remarkable abilities. His means are not something we can estimate." Senior Brother Sun raised his head expectantly and said, "That's true. But Junior Brothers, do you remember what Elder Xinping said before? If we come out of this space unscathed, he has a way to help all of us advance to the 4th layer of the blood condensation realm. Once we reach the 4th layer, we will be able to worship a core forging cultivator from the Immortal Academy as our master." Junior Brother Qian swallowed and said, "Senior Brother Sun, it can't be. You want to become Elder Schwamping's disciple?" Senior Brother Sun stared blankly for a moment, and only then did he say with a bitter smile, "I do want to, but that would still require Elder Xinping's favor. However, I heard an immortal elder from our Immortal Academy inadvertently say that Elder Xinping indeed hasn't accepted any disciples, because there has never been anyone who could enter his elder's eyes." Junior Brother Zhou was puzzled and asked, "Then what do you mean, Senior Brother?" Senior Brother Sun said, "I heard some news from the Immortal Academy. Normally, when a cultivator reaches the mid-blood condensation realm, they will have the qualifications to become a core forging enlightened master's disciple, but they will only become an in-name disciple. However, if they are talented and want to improve themselves, or if they have some special talent, they can directly become a core forging enlightened master's personal disciple. In the future, they might even inherit the enlightened master's legacy and become his direct disciple." Senior Brother Sun looked at Junior Brother Qian and Junior Brother Zhou and said, "I'm telling you this because the 3 of us have the highest achievements among this batch of Immortal Academy disciples. If we want to advance to the mid-blood condensation realm, we would rather not have a master for now. We have to think carefully about who we want to be under. Of course, it would be best if we can become a personal disciple in one go. That way, our achievements in the future will be even higher. Du Jialua and Tianyu followed behind Debao, making many turns and twists. They avoided the spatial cracks that could easily devour or cut them in half. When the two of them started to feel dizzy, they finally saw Debao stop in front of them. When the two of them looked up, the scene in front of them left them dumbfounded. Fortunately, Debao had seen more shocking scenes with Lu Ping. Even though the scene here also made Debao gasp in surprise, he immediately turned around and said to the two of them, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and release the bee swarm that boss gave you." Oh, Tianyu quickly released the 50 blood-refining realm amethyst bees. Du Jialua did not have the bee swarm that Lu Ping gave him. Seeing that Tianyu released the level 3 blood condensation realm amethyst bee, Du Jialua also released his own. Debao looked at the dozens of demonic bees, then looked at the large, spiritual herb garden in front of him. Then, he took out a spirit beast bag out of nowhere and shook it with all his might. Nearly 100 blood-refining realm amethyst bees were shaken out. When they saw the spiritual herb garden in front of them, they really swarmed towards the spiritual herb garden. Du Jialua and Tianyu also walked towards the spiritual herb garden. Debao stopped them and said, Hey, where are you two going?" The two of them stopped and looked back in confusion. Gathering spiritual herbs. Who knows when we will finish gathering such a large spiritual herb garden? There's not much time left before the Fist Valley space closes. Follow me to another place first. Chapter 717. After passing through the vast spiritual herb garden, a row of wooden houses surrounded by fences appeared in front of everyone. When Du Jialua and Tianyu saw the wooden house, they felt an inexplicable sense of excitement. As cultivators, the two of them had never had the experience of exploring the ruins before. There was no need to talk about Du Jialua. He had only cultivated for a short period of time, always staying in Immortal Academy, so he didn't have much experience. Meanwhile, Tianyu's strength was meager to begin with, and pill refinement was a noble profession to begin with, so there was no need for him to risk his life to explore all types of dangerous historical remains. Therefore, when the two of them saw an ordinary house that looked like a wooden hut, their excitement was immediately aroused. This house was clearly built by the Surplus Heavens sect to manage the spirit herb garden in this space. How could a cultivator who could manage such a large spirit herb garden be ordinary? On the other hand, even if the cultivators who managed this spiritual herb garden were just a few unknown core forging cultivators, if they really left anything behind, it would be a huge fortune for blood condensation realm minor repairs cultivators like Du Jialua and Tianyu. The temptation of the wooden house made the two of them lose their vigilance. Du Jialua wanted to move forward, but he suddenly felt as if he was carrying a huge mountain on his back. Du Jialua looked back in surprise, only to see that Debao had stopped on the ground at some point. He said, "Don't go in yet." When Du Jialua heard this, he immediately came to a realization. He was startled. Tianyu, who was beside him, also hurriedly stopped when he heard this. Debao waved his paw on the ground, and a small stone shot into the fence with a whistling sound. Suddenly, an invisible barrier appeared around the fence. The small stone hit the barrier, and ripples immediately appeared around the barrier. However, the small stone suddenly shattered into powder before it hit the ground. Hiss! Tianyu and Du Jialua immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Fortunately, the two of them had been stopped by Debao earlier. If they had charged head-on like that, given their cultivations, they definitely would not have been able to dodge the rebound of the invisible barrier. This is an array formation? Tianyu was more knowledgeable than Du Jialua, so he asked Debao, who was on the ground. Debao's expression was a little solemn as he said, "It is indeed a formation, and it has been operating for 4,000 years. It is obvious that this place is supported by a spirit vein, and from the looks of it, the grade of the spirit vein is above a mid-grade spirit vein." Tianyu and Du Jialua knew about spirit veins. When Yingshan Immortal Academy was first established, there was only one spirit vein. 10 years later, after Heavenly Mountain Laozu perfected Lu Xianyuan, and the others worked hard to manage it, Yingshan Immortal Academy gained another 6 small-sized spirit veins. As for Heavenly Mountain Laozu, he did not open his sect to the masses. Instead, he took the path of elite disciples. Actually, the restriction of the mountain range's spirit veins was also an important reason. Debeo suddenly stood up and waved his two front paws as if he was making some sort of hand sign. Then, as if he was using his two hind legs to support his fat body, he seemed to be unable to do so, and suddenly fell back to the ground. Just as Du Jialua and Tianyu were feeling a little confused, they saw 5 purple crystal wasps split off from the swarm of wasps that were circling behind them to collect nectar. They flew in different directions of the wooden house. Seeing that the purple crystal wasps were about to hit the invisible barrier, Du Jialua hurriedly said, "Perfected Debeo. These are demon soldiers that Elder Xinping nurtured." Just as Du Jialua finished speaking, he saw 4 of the 5 purple crystal wasps that were flying in different directions explode when they touched the invisible barrier, while the remaining one was only bounced back. The purple crystal wasps flapped their wings and flew forward again, only to be bounced back a second time. They circled for a moment before flying back to the spiritual grass at the back. Debeo chuckled and said, "We don't have any formation masters among us. If we want to find an entry point, it's impossible to use lifeless stones. In that case, we can only use demonic wasps. Do we have to do it ourselves?" Debeo pretended to be a senior and spoke seriously, but he rolled his eyes again in his heart. Boss has at least 8,000 purple crystal wasps, if not 10,000. A few blood-refining wasps don't even have purple crystals on them. If they die, they die. As long as that little girl Zilan is here, the swarm will be replenished very soon. Boss won't care about this. The 3 of them looked in the direction where the purple crystal wasps had flown and saw that it was the fence at the entrance of the fence. Looks like this is the entrance to the magic array. Back then, the cultivator inside the house was in a hurry to leave. Thus, he did not activate the magic array protecting the house. Instead, he had casually set up a restrictive array at the entrance, Chen Feng thought. Du Jialua and Tianyu were greatly impressed by Debeo's words. As expected of a spirit pet that had followed Elder Xinping for many years, this level of knowledge was far beyond what the 2 of them could hope to match. Let's join forces and attack this restriction. Let's see if we can break it. Debao casually pulled out a mid-grade magic artifact from his storage magic artifact. Tianyu was using a mid-grade flying sword while Du Jialua was using a mid-grade magic artifact. It was the giant hammer from earlier. Tianyu's words interrupted Debeo's thoughts. Debeo looked at the invisible barrier in front of him again and chuckled. Then, he took out a talisman with a mixture of 3 colors under the 2's expectant gazes. "This is a restriction-breaking talisman?" Tianyu looked at the talisman in Debeo's hand with uncertainty. A trace of joy flashed across his face. Debeo didn't answer. Instead, he threw the 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman at the invisible barrier in front of him. Lu Ping was also proficient in talisman making in his early years. However, after advancing to the blood condensation realm, Lu Ping became obsessed with the art of alchemy and put his talisman-making skills aside. It wasn't that his talent in talisman making was inferior to his alchemy skills. Now that he had obtained the Ying Tian faction's talisman inheritance in the Ying Tian dojo, especially the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman, Lu Ping picked up the talisman-making skills again. During the 10 years of closed-door cultivation, he quickly made the 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman. During this trip to the Fist Valley, Lu Ping already knew that there was a small courtyard left behind by a spirit plant farmer of the Ying Tian faction in the space. It was used to guard and manage the growth of the spirit herbs in this space. Naturally, he also knew about the invisible barrier outside the fenced courtyard. Therefore, he gave the 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman that he made recently to Debeo just in case. 3 colorful rays of light swept through the talisman, and the barrier at the fenced courtyard immediately began to melt as if it was snow under the warm sun. Debeo suddenly shouted, "Hurry up, let's put in more effort." The 3 of them worked with all their might again. The barrier that had been torn open by the restriction-breaking talisman was completely shattered, and the house finally opened up to the 3 of them. Du Jialua looked at Debeo and thought about Debeo's endless tricks and treasures along the way in the space. He couldn't help but say enviously, Jinren Debao, I think you should be called Jinren Duo Bao. Treasure-seeking rat should also be called Duo Bao Rat. Debao was stunned, but Tianyu laughed and said, Junior brother Du, Jinren Debao doesn't dare to be called Jinren Duo Bao, but I can call you Duo Bao Rat. Du Jialua was confused and wanted to ask, but Debao shouted, hurry up and go in. What nonsense are you talking about? Du Jialua was confused, but when he saw that Tianyu had already followed Debao into the fenced courtyard with a smile, Du Jialua could only put his doubts aside for the time being. His curiosity about the fenced courtyard immediately took over. There was a layer of excitement on his face, and he hurriedly ran into the fenced courtyard. Chapter 718. Outside the Fist Valley space, Lu Ping and the other 4 late-stage core Forging Realm cultivators worked together to open the Fist Valley space again. Half a day had passed, and more than half of the cultivators had returned. They handed their harvests to the alchemy masters from the various sects to sort them out. Out of the 18 cultivators from Zhanling's sect, only 8 returned. Not even half of them returned. 3 of them were heavily injured, and the 4 third-level Blood Condensation Realm disciples that entered the Blood Condensation Realm didn't return. Out of the 24 disciples from the Gu clan, 15 had returned, and the Mountain Universe sect had also returned with 11 disciples. Both of them had far surpassed the Yingshan Immortal Academy. The disciples from the 2 sects had already begun to discuss among themselves, and there were sneers from time to time. The disciples that they had painstakingly nurtured had died in the Fist Valley space. Obviously, they thought that Jinling would definitely suffer a huge loss this time. Looking at Lu Ping, who had his eyes closed and a calm expression, enlightened Master Xian Fong was the first to lose his cool. He walked towards Lu Ping and said, Senior brother, what do you think? Lu Ping opened his eyes and looked at enlightened Master Xian Fong. He smiled and said, Junior brother, don't be impatient. There's still half a day left. You just need to wait patiently. Enlightened Master Xian Fong felt much more at ease when he saw Lu Ping's confident expression. However, he heard a sneer in his ear. This enlightened Master Xian Ping sure is patient. He doesn't care about the lives of his own disciples at all. Enlightened Master Fei Hong looked at his junior brother with some reproach. Just as he was about to say something, Lu Ping glanced at him indifferently and said, Who are you? Tell me your name. This enlightened master who came to replace Peng Fei Yun felt as if a pair of sharp swords were stabbing at him when Lu Ping looked at him. He felt as if his entire body was immersed in ice. However, when he heard Lu Ping's disdainful words and expression, his face immediately turned red. He pointed at Lu Ping and said coldly, You're too arrogant. When the matter in the Fist Valley is over, I'll definitely ask for a few moves from you. Lu Ping didn't even bother to look at him. He just casually said, It's the same if you ask for advice now. You. This Shunrin was a rather magnanimous person in the sect. Otherwise, he would not have been sent to take over Peng Fei Yun's duties. However, he was provoked by Lu Ping's words, and he was unable to back down. Because he knew that he was no match for Lu Ping. Taoist Master Flying Rainbow blamed his junior brother for being impetuous, but then his expression changed and he said, a disciple is coming out. Everyone was attracted by the movement in the space tunnel. The Mountain Universe sect's Taoist master fiercely turned his face away. How could he not know that his senior sister was taking the opportunity to find a way out of this embarrassing situation? However, this made the people who wanted to watch the show secretly sigh. What a pity. Lu Ping looked at Taoist Master Flying Rainbow and thought to himself that this core forging level 8 Alchemy Grandmaster's Divine Will was really not bad. It seemed to be a level higher than a peak core forging level cultivator's Divine Will. It was almost comparable to the Divine Will of a Dharma adept. This time, a disciple from the Gu clan came out first, followed by a disciple from the Mountain Universe sect. However, no one from the Yingshan Immortal Academy appeared. Taoist Xian Fong looked worriedly at Lu Ping, who still didn't seem to care. On the other side, the Mountain Universe sect's Taoist master glanced in the direction of the Immortal Academy and sneered silently. Lu Ping wasn't worried because the Amethyst Queen Bee told him that there were at least 5 third-level Blood Condensation Realm bees alive. At the same time, there were also 5 bee swarms active. Of Lu Ping's 5 bee swarms, The four third-level blood condensation realm disciples each carried one bee swarm. The largest 100-bee swarm was with Dabeo, and Dabeo followed Du Jialua into the space. This meant that the four third-level blood condensation realm disciples and Du Jialua were still alive. This meant that there were at least 5 Yingshan Immortal Academy disciples alive. As for the other 5, the Amethyst Queen Bee had already informed Lu Ping that the aura of the amethyst bees on their bodies had disappeared. This meant that they must have been ambushed in the space, and the amethyst bees they carried with them had already died. This meant that the 5 of them were probably dead. In the Fist Valley space, Du Jialua and Tianyu each stuck a divine movement talisman on their legs. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't fly in this space, they wouldn't have needed to use these talismans. At the same time, the 2 of them were amazed that Taoist Master Dabeo even had these talismans on him. As Du Jialua ran, he said to Tianyu, "It's such a pity that senior brother Tian is still alive. There's such a large spiritual herb garden around the house, but we only had time to collect all the 3,000-year spiritual herbs. There are still a large amount of 1,000-year spiritual herbs and 500-year spiritual herbs growing there." Tianyu also felt that it was a pity, but he still said, "All right, our harvest this time can be said to be the most in the Fist Valley space. We got nearly 1,000 3,000-year spiritual herbs in one go. What's there to complain about? If we continue to collect those 1,000-year spiritual herbs, I'm afraid the Fist Valley space will close." At this moment, Dabeo, who was hiding in Du Jialua's sleeve, suddenly exclaimed, 2 miles to the east, there's actually a group of Immortal Academy disciples who haven't left the space. Let's go meet up with them." Du Jialua and Tianyu heard this and quickly headed east. 2 miles passed in the blink of an eye, and they heard Dabeo say again, "I was wondering why the 3 of you were standing there without moving. We were originally blocked by someone. The 2 of you, take these things and fight your way out during the chaos later. There's not much time left. If we continue to delay, we will all be sealed in this space." Du Jialua and Tianyu each took the things that Dabeo handed over. The 2 of them looked at each other and thought to themselves, "This perfected Dabeo is so unreasonable in beating people up." Senior Martial Brother Sun, Junior Martial Brother Qian, and Junior Martial Brother Zhou were also unlucky. They had been chased all the way here, and it wasn't easy for them to find the 2 secret areas marked out by Lu Ping on the map. After collecting a few hundred 3,000-year-old spirit herbs, they were once again ambushed. Yingshan Immortal Academy, I advise you to hand over all the spiritual herbs on you. That way, we will let bygones be bygones for the fact that the 3 of you killed a disciple of my Gu clan. Otherwise, the 3 of you can stay here and wait for death." 3 purple-headed demonic bees surrounded the 3 Yingshan Immortal Academy 3rd-layer blood condensation realm disciples. The 3 of them had already been blocked by 3 Gu family disciples and 2 Mountain Universe sect disciples. The leader of the 3, Senior Brother Sun, sneered, "Humph. Don't think that I don't know about your tricks. If not for the demon weapons that Elder Xin Ping bestowed on us, the 5 of you would have already attacked us. Now you want us to hand over our things? That's just wishful thinking. If worst comes to worst, we'll just have to fight to the death. In any case, the spatial gate is closing right in front of us. Even if the 3 of us aren't your match, it's still easy for us to hold you up. You dare? Do the 3 of you really think that we won't dare to surround and kill you? Don't think that you are safe just because you have a few demon weapons on you. They are only at the 1st layer of blood condensation realm. What can they do?" Senior Brother Sun looked at the other party's fierce expression. There was a trace of panic in his eyes. From time to time, he glanced behind him, clearly calculating the time when the space would close. Senior Brother Sun sneered and looked at the 2 disciples of the Mountain Universe sect beside him. "That's strange. These 2 are clearly disciples of the Mountain Universe sect. Why are they together with the cultivators of the Gu family?" The 2 Mountain Universe sect disciples' expressions changed. One of them said, "Kill them." The 3 Gu family cultivators also reacted. They absolutely could not reveal today's matter. These 2 disciples were spies that the Gu family had painstakingly planted in the Mountain Universe sect. In the future, they might have the power to topple the Mountain Universe sect. They absolutely could not let the Shan Immortal Academy disciples leak this news. However, just as the 5 of them were about to attack, they suddenly sensed 2 people rapidly approaching them. When the 5 of them turned around, their eyes suddenly widened. Their eyes flashed with horror. They saw tens of talismans in the sky turning into countless ice blades, ice swords, fiery beasts, with thorns, vine whips, flying stone swords, and so on. All of them came crashing down towards the 5 of them. At this moment, the 5 of them no longer cared about killing the Shan Immortal Academy disciples. They quickly used their own methods to block the attacks that filled the sky. Right at this moment, 2 figures took the opportunity to rush in. Junior brother Du, why is it you? And this is senior brother Tian? Du Jelua handed 3 divine movement talismans to the 3 of them and said, "Let's go. There's not much time left. Now is not the time to be entangled with these people." The 5 of them took the chance to break through. Senior brother's son seemed to have thought of something. He turned his head and said, "The 2 of you don't have to worry. I will definitely not reveal your identities to your sect. The 2 of you don't have to worry that the Mountain Universe sect will find out about this." Outside the space, Lu Ping sensed that the 5 of them were rapidly approaching the spatial passageway through the mysterious connection between the Purple Crystal Wasp King and the Purple Crystal Wasp. Reverend Li Nan was also slightly anxious like Reverend Xian Fong. However, he was still a guest elder of Shan Immortal Academy. Even though he was trusted by everyone in the academy, there was still a layer of distance between him and Reverend Xian Fong and Elder Xian Ping. Reverend Xian Fong had already asked Lu Ping. It was not good for him to ask now. At this moment, Reverend Li Nan suddenly noticed that Elder Xian Ping, who had been expressionless all this time, suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. His heart immediately relaxed. Then, he saw Elder Xian Ping's eyes suddenly open, and he said softly, "They're here." Although Elder Xian Ping's voice was soft, everyone's expression shook when they heard it. Because of the obstruction of the spatial passageway, although everyone could sense if someone was approaching the passageway, they could not tell which sect's disciple was from. Therefore, even if Elder Xian Ping discovered that someone had returned, it might not be a disciple of Shan Immortal Academy. However, whether it was the Gu clan or the Mountain Universe sect's reverend, when they used their divine senses to observe the passageway, they did not discover any traces of disciples. Everyone did not mind. After all, Elder Xian Ping was extremely powerful. It was normal for his divine sense to be stronger than everyone else's. However, after waiting for a while, they still could not detect anyone approaching the spatial passageway. They began to look at each other. The new reverend from the Mountain Universe sect was the first to explode. He sneered and said, deliberately mystifying things, "You've lost the face of a late core forging cultivator." Chapter 719. As soon as the Mountain Universe sect spiritual master finished speaking, Lu Ping did not bother to hide his murderous intent. The Mountain Universe sect spiritual master felt as if he had fallen into an icy abyss. Clang, clang. A pair of scimitars suddenly appeared in front of the Mountain Universe sect spiritual master, protecting him. A treasure protecting its owner. This was the effect of a spirit-nurturing level life treasure. The Mountain Universe sect spiritual master's face turned purple. He hurriedly reached out, and the pair of scimitars were kept in his heart space. There were usually 2 situations in which a treasure could protect its owner. One was when the cultivator was being ambushed, and the other was when the cultivator was frightened. Lu Ping did not ambush him, but the sharpness of his gaze and the murderous intent that emanated from his body had truly frightened the Mountain Universe sect spiritual master. He was frightened. He was frightened when he was face to face. Furthermore, his opponent was not a Dharma adept, but an 8th level core forging adept. He had actually been frightened by someone of the same level as him. The Mountain Universe sect spiritual master knew that from today onwards, he would become the laughing stock of the entire Hebei cultivation world. Lu Ping's scornful gaze swept past him. The Gu family spiritual master looked in the direction of the Mountain Universe sect spiritual master, suppressing his laughter, and looked in the direction of Lu Ping with fear. Actually, it was not just the Mountain Universe sect spiritual master. Spiritual Master Flying Rainbow, Spiritual Master Gu Hun, Spiritual Master Gu Zhou, Spiritual Master Jian Ming, and the others were all shocked by Lu Ping's sudden burst of power. However, Lu Ping was mainly facing the Mountain Universe sect Spiritual Master, so they were only affected by the shockwaves. These cultivators, regardless of whether they were in the Mountain Universe sect or the Gu family, could be said to be extremely successful. The Dharma adepts had all seen this with their own eyes before, and they knew very well how they felt when facing a Dharma adept. However, in that instant, the feeling that Lu Ping gave them was exactly the same as when facing a Dharma adept. The scene fell silent. However, Spiritual Master Flying Rainbow and Spiritual Master Gu Hun suddenly froze. Of the two of them, one was a late core forging adept of the Mountain Universe sect, the other was a pillar of the Gu family. In that instant, the two of them saw the cultivators flying towards them through the spatial tunnel. 5 people, 4 at the 3rd level of the blood condensation realm. 5 people, 4 at the 3rd level of the blood condensation realm. Enlightened Master Gu Hun looked at Lu Ping in surprise. This time, only Yingshan Immortal Academy had first-layer blood condensation realm disciples. But since they appeared together with 4 other cultivators, this meant that all 5 of them were from Yingshan Immortal Academy. However, what surprised Enlightened Master Fei Hong and Enlightened Master Gu Hun the most wasn't the fact that the 5 disciples belonged to Yingshan Immortal Academy, but the fact that Lu Ping noticed them so early on. And from Lu Ping's expression, it was clear that he could clearly tell that the 5 disciples were from Yingshan Immortal Academy. What a frightening range of divine sense! At this moment, all the enlightened masters present sensed through their spiritual will that someone was approaching the passageway. They also sensed the cultivation of the first-level blood condensation cultivator. The cultivators from the various sects looked at Yingshan Immortal Academy with complicated gazes. On the other hand, Enlightened Master Xin Fong and Enlightened Master Li Nan were overjoyed. When Tianyu, Du Jialua, and the others came out of the spatial tunnel, the number of people who returned from the Yingshan Immortal Academy had increased to 13. The 5 of them walked towards Venerable Xin Fong. They wanted to hand over all the spiritual herbs they had harvested from the Fist Valley to Venerable Xin Fong. Then, Venerable Xin Fong would sort out the spiritual herbs. With Debao's help, Du Jialua walked towards the fenced courtyard in the deepest part of the spatial tunnel. Along the way, he found a few spiritual herb gardens and harvested plenty of 500-year-old and 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs. Moreover, he was only at the 1st level of the blood condensation realm. Being able to harvest as much as a 3rd-level blood condensation realm cultivator was already very good. As for the other 4 3rd-level blood condensation realm cultivators, including Tianyu, their harvests were nothing to write home about. Taoist Xin Fong looked at the total of 5 to 6,000 spirit grasses taken out by the 4 of them and was slightly disappointed. However, looking at the excited faces of the 5 of them, he thought that the 5 of them were excited because they had survived a disaster in the void space. Originally, he wanted to reprimand them, but he swallowed it back. A moment later, 2 disciples of the Gu family and 2 disciples of the Mountain Universe sect rushed out of the space tunnel in a sorry state. They were 4 of the 5 people who had joined forces to stop Senior Sun and the others. However, for some reason, one of the disciples of the Gu family was missing. When Du Jialua and the others used their talismans to break through the 5 people's obstruction, they were too anxious about the spatial tunnel's closing time. As a result, they did not know that Debao's talismans had killed one of the Gu family disciples. The 2 disciples of the Gu clan glared fiercely at Du Jialua and the other 4 disciples of the Yingshan Immortal Academy. They saw that Senior Brother Sun was also smiling at them. At the same time, he was whispering something to Taoist Xin Fong beside him. Their expressions turned serious. They lowered their heads and walked towards the cultivators of their own families. The 2 Mountain Universe sect disciples were even more dejected. There was even a look of fear on their faces. Rumble. Muffled rumbling sounds could be heard. After 3 months, the spatial tunnel finally collapsed and closed again. The next time it reopened would be 300 years later. In this trip to the Fist Valley, Yingshan Immortal Academy had lost a total of 5 disciples. Among them, 2 were at the 2nd level of the blood condensation realm, and 3 were at the 1st level of the blood condensation realm. Of the 18 disciples from the Mountain Universe sect, 14 returned. However, 2 of them were spies from the Gu family. Of the 20 disciples from the Gu family, only 18 returned. As for the harvests, the various pill refiners had collected all the harvests the moment the disciples came out. Clearly, no one had any intention of revealing their harvests. On the Ying River, a large ship was sailing against the current. Lu Ping took out a small flag from his sleeve. It was the water-controlling flag that he had not used for a long time. Lu Ping held the small flag in his hand and waved it lightly. Instantly, the small flag turned into a 3-zhang tall sail. The sail moved without any wind, and the speed of the ship instantly doubled. Lu Ping nodded at Du Jialua and the 4 third-level blood condensation realm disciples. "The 4 of you, follow me." After saying that, Lu Ping took the lead and walked towards the cabin. Xianfang was curious, so he followed behind Lu Ping. Although Li Nan was also curious about what Lu Ping had said to the 3rd-level blood condensation realm disciples, and why there was another 1st-level blood condensation realm disciple, he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not follow Lu Ping. Lu Ping paused at the door of the cabin. He turned around and smiled at Li Nan. "Brother Li, come in and take a look. There are some things that I need Brother Li's help with." Li Nan was stunned for a moment. Then, he said excitedly, "This? Okay, I'll be right there." Inside the cabin, Xianfang asked impatiently, "Senior brother, what did you ask them to do in the space? Why is it that the few with the highest cultivation level have the same harvest as the others? Some of them are even worse than the others." Lu Ping smiled. "Junior brother, don't be impatient. Did the 5 of you find the secret places I told you about?" Senior Marshal Brother Sun took the lead and said, "Elder gave us several secret areas, but Disciple, Junior Marshal Brother Zhou, and Junior Marshal Brother Qian only managed to find 2 of them. The other places were blocked by space cracks, and Disciples were unable to enter." After saying that, the 3 of them took out dozens of jade boxes that Lu Ping had given them from their storage artifacts. Xianfang let out a strange cry. "Jade crystal boxes? Did you guys find a 3,000-year-old spiritual herb in there? That's not right. If there are 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs in the space of the Fist Valley, why didn't the Ying He, Dao Universe, and Ying Shan sects discover them after thousands of years?" Perfected Li Nan was shocked when he saw the jade crystal box. However, he considered one more thing. Previously, the space in Fist Valley had always been secretly controlled by Ying He and the other 2 factions. It was difficult for others to know what was going on inside, but Elder Xian Ping clearly knew about it. Why was that? Lu Ping noticed Li Nan's puzzled gaze. He did not explain but waved his sleeves and opened all the jade boxes. Xianfang was so shocked that he almost coughed. "It's indeed 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs. There's almost 2,000 of them? Moreover, this is the double ice leaf, this is the scarlet flame grass, and there's also the rain leaf flower. These are all precious spirit herbs that are almost extinct in the cultivation world. Even among spirit herbs that are 3,000 years old, they are all extremely precious." Li Nan was already dumbfounded. If the Mountain Universe sect and the Gu clan found out about so many 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs, the 2 sects would probably join forces to attack the Ying Shan Immortal Academy. Lu Ping's face was also filled with joy because he had found more than a dozen types of rare spirit herbs needed to concoct the spirit forging pellet among the spirit herbs. Lu Ping picked out all the spirit herbs and picked out about 400 of the spirit herbs that he needed. Then, he pushed the remaining 1,500 spirit herbs to enlighten Master Xianfang and said, "Junior Marshal Brother, take these spirit herbs for now. You can pick some of them for practice in the future. As for the rest, give them to Junior Marshal Uncle Tianshan and ask him to keep them." Although Xianfang was envious of these spiritual herbs, he quickly waved his hands and said, No, Senior Brother. I am only familiar with refining mid-core forging pills now. The 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs are not in my hands. It's better to leave them in Senior Brother's hands." Lu Ping smiled and picked out a few of the spiritual herbs that were easier to refine from Jinling's legacy elixir. There were about 100 of them that were commonly used to refine half-step Dharma pills. He handed them to the flustered Xianfang and said, It's better to be prepared. The improvement of one's alchemy skills is built on the foundation of wasting large amounts of spiritual herbs. Seeing that Xianfang still wanted to decline, Lu Ping said, "Don't worry and take them. You don't have to worry about the elixir pavilion. Since I made the decision, those two won't say anything." Xianfang knew that the elixir pavilion that Lu Ping mentioned was not the Celestial Academy's elixir pavilion, but the elixir pavilion of Zhenling. Those two naturally referred to the two grandmasters, Tianlu Laozu and Tianqin Laozu. Only these two had the authority to handle the 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs in Zhenling. Xianfang knew that Lu Ping had a lot of influence. Although he was not an alchemist trained by the elixir pavilion, he was still the third grandmaster alchemist in the sect. His position in the sect was very important. Since he wanted to hand these spiritual herbs to him, no one else would dare to say anything. Chapter 720. Although perfected Xianfang did not reveal that Lu Ping was an alchemy grandmaster, he had repeatedly said that these 3,000-year-old herbs could only be used to their fullest potential when they were in Lu Ping's hands. Perfected Li Nan, who was at the side, was naturally stunned. Could it be that this powerful elder Xian Ping was also an alchemy grandmaster? And from what perfected Xianfang had said, elder Xian Ping's alchemy skills were obviously above perfected Xianfang's. Thinking back to how elder Xian Ping had managed to convince the two alchemy grandmasters of the Mountain Universe sect and the Gu family with just a few words, who else could have such skills besides an alchemy grandmaster? Once he thought of an alchemy grandmaster, perfected Li Nan felt his throat tighten. This was an alchemy grandmaster. In the cultivation world, just this identity alone was enough to be mentioned in the same breath as a Dharma adept. Also, who were the two people that Elder Xian Ping mentioned? Elder Xin Tian and Laozu of Tianshan? Obviously not, and from the tone of Elder Xian Ping's words, it was obvious that he had placed himself in the same position as the two people. In the Yingshan Immortal Academy, the only person who could be compared to an alchemy grandmaster was Laozu of Tianshan. No matter what, Elder Xin Tian was not qualified. Li Nan was also a quick-witted person. Otherwise, he would not have been entrusted with so many matters of the Immortal Academy by the old ancestor of Tianshan Mountain. A bold idea immediately emerged in his mind. Could the two that Elder Xian Ping mentioned be alchemy grandmasters like him? Even perfected Li Nan himself was shocked by this thought. But immediately, perfected Li Nan remembered a rumor about the Yingshan Immortal Academy that had been circulating in the Yingshan mountain range. It was said that the Yingshan Immortal Academy was not actually founded by Guatianshan Laozu. There was definitely another power supporting it, and the Yingshan Immortal Academy was just a tentacle of this power that had infiltrated the Yingshan mountain range. Towards this rumor, perfected Li Nan had originally been skeptical, but now he was 70 to 80% sure that it was true. Perfected Master Li Nan was in a daze, and there was a hint of surprise in his daze, which naturally fell into Lu Ping and perfected Master Xianfang's eyes. Perfected Li Nan was instantly alerted. When he turned around to look, he saw Lu Ping looking at him with a faint smile. Perfected Li Nan heaved a long sigh of relief and said, "I was shocked by the generosity of these disciples. 2,000, 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs. How could He sect, Dao Universe sect, and Ing Mountain sect not discover any 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs after entering the Fist Valley's space more than 10 times? Lu Ping was not bothered by it and said with a smile, "They were just lucky to have obtained some ancient books passed down by the Yingtian sect. From them, they were lucky enough to discover a hidden path hidden in a few space cracks. These disciples could be considered to have a narrow escape." After saying that, he looked at Du Jelua and Tianyu. Between the two of them, Tianyu had already found a hidden space with 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs before they met. Then, he and Du Jelua followed Debao into the deepest part of the Fist Valley space and found the Fengba courtyard. In the end, due to the lack of time, they could only pick more than 1,000 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs from the large spiritual herb garden around the Fengba courtyard. In addition to the spiritual herbs that Tianyu had found previously, there were close to 1,700 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs in total. Oh, So the two of you didn't manage to collect all the spiritual herbs in the deepest part of the space due to the lack of time. Not only did you leave behind a large number of thousand-year-old spiritual herbs, but you also didn't manage to collect many 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs in time. Lu Ping asked Tianyu in surprise. Although there was a little pity in his expression, there was also a hint of joy. The few of you, hand over the bee swarms I gave you. Lu Ping made a few hand seals, and a third-level blood condensation realm bee flew out from each of the 5 of them. After the 3 of them handed over 4 spirit beast pouches containing 50 bee swarms to Lu Ping, the buzzing of the bees suddenly sounded outside the cabin. Lu Ping casually opened the cabin door and 8 third-level blood condensation realm bees flew out. Suddenly, a 3-inch square gate that seemed to be made of gold appeared above Lu Ping's palm. All the bees lined up neatly and flashed through the gate. Footsteps sounded outside the cabin. The other 8 Immortal Academy disciples had obviously received Lu Ping's notice and came to the cabin together. After the 8 of them greeted the 3 enlightened masters, Lu Ping pointed with his finger and 13 golden talismans appeared in front of them. He said, "These are the talisman treasures that I made during my free time. They will be your reward for entering the space of the Fist Valley this time." Although these talisman treasures are different from each other, their power is more or less the same. Once they are used, even early-stage core forging cultivators will be heavily injured. They can be used to save your lives. The 13 talisman treasures not only shocked the 13 Immortal Academy disciples, but also enlightened Master Xian Fong and enlightened Master Li Nan were stunned by Lu Ping's generosity. Lu Ping looked at everyone's expression and smiled. He said, "After you return, you can go to enlightened Master Xian Tao of the Immortal Academy to receive a high-grade magic tool each. You might not be able to use high-grade magic tools now, but you will be able to use them after you advance to the mid-stage blood condensation realm." Although the crowd did not know when enlightened Master Xian Tao of the Immortal Academy appeared, and he seemed to be a tool refiner, a high-grade magic tool as a reward was enough for the disciples to cheer. One must know that in the North Sea, mid-stage blood condensation realm disciples were most commonly using mid-grade magic tools. Some disciples who were not doing well even used low-grade magic tools after advancing to the mid-stage blood condensation realm. Although the Middle Earth was rich, the Immortal Academy was still newly established. Even with Zhenling's support, they did not have the courage to let all the mid-stage blood condensation realm disciples use high-grade magic tools. Lu Ping looked at the disciples who were brimming with joy and nodded at enlightened Master Xian Fong. Enlightened Master Xian Fong smiled and said, "With senior brother Xian Ping and senior brother Xian Tao as examples, my rewards are a little inferior." Enlightened Master Xian Fong took out 13 jade bottles and distributed them to the disciples. He said, "These are 13 bottles of sea soul pills. Take them after you advance to the 3rd layer of the blood condensation realm. It will help you break through the bottleneck of the 3rd layer and advance to the mid-stage blood condensation realm." Everyone happily accepted it, and only then did they reluctantly leave the cabin. Enlightened Master Li Nan sighed. "Elder Xian Ping is really generous. Even the disciples of the large sects are not as generous as you." Lu Ping smiled and said, "These disciples took the risk of dying in the space. Compared to the 5 disciples who died, they deserve these rewards." Lu Ping looked at senior brother Sun and the other 4 disciples who were still in the cabin. He took out 5 jade bottles from his storage artifact and said, "These are the half caddy of monster honey I promised each of you." Although Du Jialua joined the mission halfway, he also has a share of the reward. Although the disciples accepted the bottles respectfully, they obviously did not know what the monster honey was for. Was it for drinking water? Enlightened Master Xian Fong could not stand it anymore. One must know that Lu Ping's amethyst honey and amethyst royal jelly were handed over to the sect on a regular basis every year. The amethyst royal jelly was naturally divided between the 2 elders of the Pill Pavilion. As for the others, only the alchemy masters could get some. Compared to the preciousness of the amethyst royal jelly, Lu Ping handed over more amethyst honey to the sect. Moreover, most of the honey ended up in the hands of the alchemy masters of the sect. Enlightened Master Xian Fong could get 2.5 caddy of amethyst royal jelly every year. This was because enlightened Master Xian Fong had the lowest qualification among the alchemy masters of the Jinling sect. Even so, enlightened Master Xian Fong treasured the amethyst honey very much. It could be used as a panacea in alchemy. If the few of you really use this to drink water, it'll be a reckless waste of God's good gifts. Humph, if you don't need these things, take them to the alchemy room and exchange them for pills that you need for your own cultivation. But it's best to exchange for pills that are more useful for breaking through bottlenecks. Don't exchange for ordinary cultivation pills. This way, with half a caddy of amethyst honey, it will be enough for your cultivation to advance to the late blood condensation realm. Enlightened Master Xian Fong's words made senior brother Sun and the rest's eyes lit up. Only now did they know what kind of treasure the amethyst honey was. Lu Ping felt ashamed in his heart. In fact, most of the amethyst honey was used by Lu Ping to make tea. If enlightened Master Xian Fong, who saw it as a reckless waste of God's good gifts, knew what he would think. After sending the 5 away, Lu Ping smiled and said to enlightened Master Xian Fong, "Junior brother Xian Fong, I still have a lot of amethyst honey. Since junior brother wants to use it for alchemy, you can take half a caddy." Enlightened Master Xian Fong was overjoyed. He had long wanted to ask Lu Ping for some amethyst honey, but because of the grudge between them decades ago, enlightened Master Xian Fong was too embarrassed to ask. Lu Ping smiled and took out 2 jade bottles, one big and one small, from his storage artifact. The small jade bottle was made of chalcedony. Enlightened Master Xian Fong's heart tightened when he saw the small chalcedony bottle with the amethyst honey. Lu Ping smiled and passed the 2 jade bottles to him. Enlightened Master Xian Fong put the big jade bottle with the amethyst honey into his storage artifact. Holding the small chalcedony bottle in his hand, he suddenly stood up and bowed to Lu Ping. Senior brother's magnanimity is something enlightened Master Xian Fong cannot compare. Although perfected Li Nan on the side did not know what was in the small jade bottle, for an alchemy master who was used to seeing rare treasures to bow so solemnly, it was obvious that the item in the small jade bottle was extraordinary. At this moment, Lu Ping handed another jade bottle to enlightened Master Li Nan. "Brotherly, take this bottle of monster honey. Treat it as a gift from your little brother to Brother Li." Enlightened Master Li Nan nodded his head. Enlightened Master Li Nan did not know about the amethyst honey, but from enlightened Master Xian Fong's reaction just now, he knew that the demonic honey was extraordinary. He said, "How can I take it? I don't know anything about alchemy." "It's a waste for me to keep it," Lu Ping said. "Brotherly, you don't have to be so polite. Just take it." Lu Ping stuffed the bottle of amethyst honey into enlightened Master Li Nan's hand. He then turned to the corner of the cabin and said, "Come out. Tell me, what else did you find in the space?" "Boss, you have to help me break the seal first." A rodent that looked like a ball rolled out from the corner of the cabin and complained. Chapter 721. Enlightened Master Li Nan had already noticed that when Elder Xian Ping brought the 5 disciples into the cabin, a blood condensation realm rat demon slid out from the sleeve of the early blood condensation disciple and hid in a corner of the cabin without making a sound. At that time, Lu Ping and enlightened Master Xian Fong didn't say anything. Enlightened Master Li Nan was a smart person and naturally wouldn't point it out. It was just an early blood condensation realm rat demon. What could it do? However, when this rat demon ran out and spoke in the human language, enlightened Master Li Nan couldn't help but be surprised. It wasn't because Debao could speak in the human language at the early blood condensation realm, but because enlightened Master Li Nan could see that Debao's cultivation was actually sealed. What surprised enlightened Master Li Nan was that this rat demon wasn't a high-level monster. It was the lowest-level spirit-seeking mouse. This kind of spirit-seeking mouse was usually at the late blood-refining realm at most. It was already considered heaven-defying for a spirit-seeking mouse to break through to the blood condensation realm. However, this spirit-seeking mouse was clearly not only at the early blood condensation realm. Lu Ping cast a few hand seals, and a purplish-blue light shone on Debao's body. It was as if Debao's body was resonating. Before Debao could enjoy the feeling of regaining his core forging realm cultivation, he suddenly realized that his cultivation had only increased to the mid-blood condensation realm. Debao asked fearfully, "Boss, is there something wrong with your sealing technique?" Why is your cultivation only at the mid-blood condensation realm and it's not moving anymore? Lu Ping smiled and said, Debeo, do you want to recover your core forging realm cultivation base now and then drop from the second layer to the first layer? Or do you want to slowly recover your cultivation base this way so that you can strengthen your foundation and build a foundation for your future cultivation? Debeo asked cautiously, Boss, didn't you say that even if my cultivation drops to the first level, I can still strengthen my foundation after cultivating again? Lu Ping only said one sentence. The latter can go further. Debeo immediately jumped up and said, Then of course it's the latter. It was hard for him to jump so high with such a fat and heavy body. However, he forgot to ask Lu Ping how long it would take if he used the latter method. Since that's the case, let's cut the crap. Hurry up and show us what we've gained in the Fist Valley. Debeo was very depressed that he couldn't return to his human form for the time being, but he still didn't dare to disobey Lu Ping's order. He took out a jade box from the storage pouch hanging from his neck. After opening it, there were 4 big and 6 small beads inside, each containing a dense chi. Is this a spirit gathering pearl? There are actually so many of them. This time, Taoist Li Nan finally saw a treasure that he recognized. However, there seemed to be too many of these treasures appearing at once. Even Taoist Li Nan himself could not remember how many surprises he had received today. From the looks of it, there should be at least 4 medium-sized spiritual veins in the area formed by the spatial crack. No wonder there is such a large spiritual herb garden inside. So many spiritual veins have been nourishing these spiritual herbs for hundreds and thousands of years. Each of the 4 big spirit-gathering pearls could nurture a small spiritual vein, while the 6 small spirit-gathering pearls meant 6 small spiritual veins. Lu Ping kept the jade box and looked at Debeo. What else? Debeo took out dozens of jade boxes, which were filled with spiritual herbs that were thousands of years old. Most of them were 3,000 years old. It seemed that these spiritual herbs had been collected and preserved for thousands of years. Obviously, they were left behind by the disciples of the Ying Tian sect who were guarding this space. Lu Ping scanned with his divine telekinesis and realized that most of the spiritual herbs had preserved their medicinal properties. Among them, there were many extremely rare spiritual herbs. There were also dozens of spiritual herbs that could be used to refine spirit-forging pills. Lu Ping did not hesitate and kept all the boxes in his storage artifact. What else? Debeo complained, Boss, there are some tools that can be used to cultivate spiritual herbs. Although there are many of these things, they are all magic tools. At most, they are top-grade magic tools. Moreover, most of them can't be used in battle. Debeo, I forgot to tell you. Using the second method to break the seal is equivalent to cultivating for the second time. Only when you reach the 6th layer of the blood condensation realm will you be able to break the second seal and advance to the late blood condensation realm. Similarly, only when you reach the peak of the 9th layer of the blood condensation realm will you be able to break the 3rd seal and advance to the core forging realm. Don't blame me for not reminding you that this time's cultivation is not a true recultivation. If you want to shorten the cultivation period by taking some kind of pill, it's possible. Boss, are you trying to trick me? Debeo shouted angrily. He took out another jade bowl from his storage artifact and said, Boss, let's use the first method. Being in the blood condensation realm is too stifling. Too late. Lu Ping took the jade bowl and looked at the bowl of clean water that emitted a fragrant aroma. Heaven and earth wonder water? Debeo hung his head dejectedly and said, Boss, you're lucky. This was found in a well in the fenced courtyard of the space grotto heaven. Debeo paused for a moment and said, That well is a place where spirit veins converge. There is an abundance of spirit energy in that well. However, there is a jade bowl hanging above the well. There is already a bowl of clean water in it. I can tell that this jade bowl is not ordinary, so I brought it back. Lu Ping first carefully examined the jade bowl in his hand, then looked at the clean water in it. He suddenly raised his head and said, You took this jade bowl away from the well. What else is in it now? Debeo smiled proudly and said, I knew it was a treasure. Nothing can escape my, Lu Debeo's, detection. Don't worry, boss. I've already placed another jade bowl on the water in the well. In fact, There is an identical jade bowl on the stone edge of the well. When I saw it, it was obvious that the two jade bowls were taking turns. Boss, the clean water in this jade bowl is obviously not ordinary, right? Do you think it's time for my cultivation to? Let's not talk about this anymore. I have my own plans. Give me the last item first. When Debeo heard Lu Ping's words, his expression changed. Then, he cried out in surprise and jumped 2 steps back. He said, Boss, how did you know that I have one last treasure? And it's the most important treasure. Lu Ping glanced at Debeo and added on his behalf. Ah, I'm scared of you. This time, Debeo carefully took out a wooden box. When Lu Ping saw the wooden box, he was startled. When he held the wooden box in his hand, he saw the secret spirit sealing runes on the surface of the wooden box. For a moment, he was speechless. When Spiritual Master Xin Feng saw this, he asked, Senior brother, do you already know what is in the box? Lu Ping nodded and turned to Debeo. Have you seen what is inside? Debeo shook his head and said, I can feel that the thing inside is extraordinary. However, the seal on the surface of the box is not something I can open. Lu Ping nodded and suddenly said, We've arrived at the Immortal Academy. I'll wait. Only then did Spiritual Master Li Nan and Spiritual Master Xin Feng realize that the giant boat had returned to a pier not far from the back mountain of the Yingshan Immortal Academy under the control of Lu Ping's water-controlling flag. Li Nan and Spiritual Master Xin Feng naturally knew that Lu Ping was unwilling to tell them about the treasure inside the wooden box. Hence, they got up and walked towards Spiritual Master Lu Xinyuan and Spiritual Master Qi Zicai, who were welcoming the group back. On the pier, enlightened Master Lu Xinyuan sighed when he saw the 13 disciples disembarking. I've only managed to nurture a little over 20 blood condensation disciples in the past 10 years. In just 3 months, I've already lost 5. Qi Zicai smiled faintly and said, That's why those who survive can go further. Spiritual Master Lu Xinyuan nodded, but did not say anything. However, there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. After greeting Lu Xinyuan and Qi Zicai, Lu Ping directly sat on Degui's back and followed the river towards the forbidden area of the back mountain. Inside the rocky cavern, Lu Ping carefully placed the wooden box on the stone platform in front of him. He formed a few hand seals and rays of bluish-purple light flowed out like streams of water, washing away the seals on the wooden box's surface layer by layer. Lu Ping originally obtained the failing sex restriction-breaking secret technique. After that, he received guidance from Spiritual Master Liang Xianfeng. Later on, he obtained the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman from the Yingtian Dojo. Lu Ping's understanding of the restriction-breaking secret technique had reached an extremely high level. Otherwise, Lu Ping would not have been able to make the 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman in such a short time. In fact, Lu Ping could now make the 4-colored restriction-breaking talisman, but the success rate was not high. Previously, Lu Ping estimated that a 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman would be enough, so he did not give the only 4-colored restriction-breaking talisman to Debeo. The seals on the surface of the wooden box became fainter and fainter until there was no trace of the seals on the surface of the wooden box. Finally, the wooden box cracked automatically with a crack. Lu Ping opened the wooden box, and there were 3 golden pills of different sizes wrapped in spirit-sealing talismans. Lu Ping let out a long breath and said, It's really this thing. Lu Ping opened the 3 spirit-sealing talismans, and the 3 pills suddenly burst out with a strong vitality. This aura instantly filled the entire cultivation room of Lu Ping. If Lu Ping had not made a guess and set up a restriction in the entire cave, this vitality would have quickly spread to the entire forbidden area of the back mountain. The Wood Luan Golden Pill. It really was the Wood Luan Golden Pill. According to legend, it could be used to produce a large number of high-level spirit herbs in an extremely short time. It was a treasure that almost all Dharma adepts in the entire cultivation world coveted. It was also the innate magical power that almost caused the extinction of the Wood Luan race. 3 Wood Luan Golden Pills. One was in the early core forging realm, one was in the middle core forging realm, and the biggest one was in the late core forging realm. Chapter 722. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Lu Ping woke up from his closed-door cultivation. He smiled after scanning the stone room with his divine sense and opened the restriction on the stone room. Lu Taohua hopped in from outside the stone room. When she saw Lu Ping, she giggled and said, "Brother, shouldn't that jade bowl be given to Peach Blossom?" There was a jade bowl in front of Lu Ping. It was found by Debao in the well in the fenced courtyard of the Fist Valley. Back then, there was a bowl full of clean water in the well. This bowl of clean water was a kind of heaven and earth oddity. It was a kind of strange water that could be used to improve the tripure true pupils. This kind of strange water was extremely rare. It was the water in the well that was nourished by the spiritual vein all year round. After that, it gradually condensed into a water essence. This water essence was different from the essence of Kuei water. It didn't have much effect when used to condense a protective aura. Instead, it was quite miraculous when used to cultivate other special techniques and abilities. This kind of water essence would normally evaporate after being formed in the well water. It was extremely difficult to collect. However, this jade bowl was a strange treasure. Although it was only condensed with a treasure restriction, it was quite effective in collecting some spiritual liquid and maintaining its special effect. Moreover, there must be a special formation left by the Yingtian sect in the well to help this jade bowl condense the water essence. The scale of Lu Ping's spiritual herb garden in the House of Gold grew bigger and bigger. There were more and more types of spiritual herbs. Previously, Luan Yu took care of it, so Lu Ping basically didn't have to worry about it. After Luan Yu left with Laozu Wujiu, Lu Ping could only put part of his energy into the management of the spiritual herb garden. However, this situation allowed Lu Ping to regain his freedom after Lu Taohua transformed. Lu Taohua was the transformation of the spirit demon peach tree. Although she received the inheritance of the Longhuai ancestor, she had a quiet and elegant temperament. She naturally liked spiritual plants and flowers. Moreover, her talent was very beneficial to the growth of these plants. Therefore, Lu Ping gave her the task of managing the entire spiritual herb garden in the House of Gold. Lu Taohua obviously enjoyed it. After that, Lu Ping gave Lu Taohua all the books related to the cultivation of spirit herbs, flowers, and trees. He also taught her the concoction methods of the 100-flower dew, 1,000-fragrance dew, and a few other spirit liquids. All these years, Lu Taohua had been keeping Lu Ping's spirit herb garden in good order. Some of the 500-year-old spirit herbs had already begun to mature. A year ago, when Lu Ping was preparing to go into seclusion to absorb the water essence to improve his tripure true pupils, this little girl saw this jade bowl and clamored to take it away. Even though this jade bowl was rather miraculous, it was only an ordinary magic treasure that had been condensed with a single restriction in the end. Thus, he promised to give this jade bowl to her after he came out of his closed-door cultivation. Lu Ping knew that Lu Taohua wanted to use this jade bowl to collect the morning dew from the spiritual herb garden. The morning dew contained spiritual energy and the essence of plants. It was essential for cultivating all kinds of spiritual liquids. Lu Ping smiled as he watched Lu Taohua happily leave with the jade bowl. His eyes glowed brightly. Now that his 3 pure true pupils had condensed 6 types of mystical water, the effects of the 3 pure true pupils were even more prominent. Lu Ping took out a jade bottle and poured out 8 spirit-forging pills. After his trip to the Fist Valley, Lu Ping had collected a few more cauldrons of spirit herbs for the spirit-forging pellets. However, he didn't want to reveal the fact that he had the myriad wonder dew on him. Although he had refined 2 cauldrons of spirit-forging pellets and stabilized the success rate at 40%, Lu Ping didn't plan to hand over the 8 spirit-forging pellets to the sect. Including the 8 spirit-forging pills that Lu Ping had secretly left behind, he actually had 14 spirit-forging pills. However, Lu Ping didn't plan to concoct more. Aside from the fact that he couldn't use them for the time being, his alchemy skills were still improving. Although he already had a 40% success rate, spirit-forging pellets were far more valuable than Avatar Realm medicinal pellets. Therefore, concocting a large number of spirit-forging pellets was still not worth it. After making so many, Lu Ping also realized that the spirit-forging pill was not as powerful as he had imagined it to be. There was a limit for cultivators to condense spirit objects. They could only increase the number of spirit objects they needed by 2 grades each time. These 2 grades limited the number of spirit objects a cultivator could smelt. Even the spirit forging pill could not do anything about this. The so-called spirit forging pill could increase the grade of the spirit objects that a cultivator smelted. It referred to a cultivator who, due to various reasons, could not reach the requirement of reaching 2 grades of spirit objects. For example, if a cultivator smelted a low-grade earth spirit object for the first time, then the second time he smelted a high-grade earth spirit object, this limit meant that no matter how many spirit forging pills a cultivator took, he would not be able to break through. Moreover, each cultivator could only take 3 spirit forging pills. However, because of various accidents, this cultivator's strength was only enough to refine a mid-grade earth step spirit object. Thus, the significance of the spirit forging pill was revealed. It could help a cultivator reach the highest grade of spirit objects that could be refined. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu advanced to the late stage of core forging, he smelted 2 high-grade earth spirit objects. When he smelted a spirit object for the 3rd time, with his strength at that time, he could only smelt 1 mid-grade heaven spirit object. However, because of the 2 spirit forging pills, Jiang Tianlin Laozu managed to smelt 2 mid-grade heaven spirit objects in one go and formed a high-grade golden core among the 8th grade spirit objects. The same was true for Lu Tianling Laozu. Originally, Lu Tianling Laozu could only smelt 2 low-grade heaven spirit objects like Xianling Sec's Feng Shutao, and Feng Shutao's strength was even higher than Lu Tianling Laozu's. However, after taking the 2 spirit forging pills, Lu Tianling Laozu managed to smelt 3 low-grade heaven spirit objects in one go and barely formed a 8th grade golden core. After advancing to the transcendence stage, Lu Tianling was able to suppress Feng Shutao. The second function of the spirit forging pill was to shorten a cultivator's cultivation time. Chu Xuanqing, Liang Xianfeng, Guo Xianshan, and the fallen spiritual master Li Xianin originally needed to accumulate a large amount of time to smelt low-grade heaven spirit objects. However, after taking the spirit forging pill, they all formed a 7th grade golden core ahead of time and advanced to the transcendent stage. Even so, the effect of the spirit forging pill was enough to make the entire cultivation world go crazy. It was no wonder that Fei Ling's sect's destruction was attributed to the spirit forging pill. However, when he thought of the spirit forging pill, Lu Ping had a new idea. The North Sea was barren. Even if Fei Ling's sect had the method to refine the spirit forging pill, there were 2 constraints. The first was naturally the dozens of extremely rare 3,000-year-old spirit herbs that were used to refine the spirit forging pill. These spirit herbs were almost extinct in the cultivation world, but Yingtian sect's Fist Valley had planted a large amount of these spirit herbs. Yingtian sect was Fei Ling's sect's ally in the Middle Earth back then. Could it be that the 2 sects had a secret agreement about the spirit forging pill? Thinking of this, Lu Ping unconsciously thought of the Wonder Dew of 10,000. In fact, the real key to refining the spirit forging pill was the Wonder Dew of 10,000, the rare and almost extinct spirit herbs. The real factor was still the Wonder Dew of 10,000. Every refining of the spirit forging pill required a drop of the Wonder Dew of 10,000. Although there were a total of 36 drops of the Wonder Dew of 10,000, the rarity of the Wonder Dew of 10,000 was even higher than some high-grade heaven-rank spirit items. Then, where did the Wonder Dew of 10,000 that Fei Ling's sect needed to refine the spirit forging pill come from? The Wonder Dew of 10,000 was not like those spirit herbs that could be obtained through meticulous cultivation. It was a spirit item of heaven and earth that was nurtured by the heavens and earth. Obtaining it depended entirely on luck. Who knew where such a rare treasure could be found? However, Lu Ping immediately thought of the East Sea's perished secret grounds, the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven's Golden Canyon, and the pool of 10,000 poison liquid in his house of gold. Lu Ping's heart was in turmoil. Could it be that the birth of spirit items of heaven and earth could really be controlled through some kind of method? Lu Ping pinched his fingers and counted the time. It was time for perfected Lu Xinyuan to return to the North Sea. Lu Ping rummaged through his interspatial mystic instrument and found a bunch of things. These were the things he wanted to get rid of enlightened Master Lu Xinyuan, and bring to Hu Lily and his friends. Although Jinling had secretly mastered the ultra-long-distance teleportation array, and after perfected Xuanzhen's modification, it could now teleport 5 people at once. However, each teleportation required 2 top-grade spirit stones. This was still a huge expense for Jinling, who was now much richer. In addition, the other end of the teleportation array was located in the territory of the demon race. Therefore, every time Jinling used the teleportation array, they were extremely cautious. Although Lu Ping now had 5 or 6 top-grade spirit stones in his hands, he was reluctant to spend them on the teleportation array. This time, in addition to perfected Lu Xinyuan, there were 2 other core forging stage cultivators who came with perfected Lu Xinyuan. The other person was actually perfected Li Nan. After many years of testing, perfected Li Nan was finally accepted as a registered disciple by Gua Tianshan Laozu. Gua Tianshan allowed him to return to the North Sea to practice a more complete cultivation method. This was an opportunity for him. Perfected Li Nan was able to rely on an incomplete and not very good cultivation method to cultivate all the way to the 6th layer of core forging. It could be seen that his aptitude, perception, and perseverance were all good. The only thing he lacked was an opportunity. This time, Laozu accepted him as a registered disciple was an opportunity for him to go further. Now that Jinling's foundation was far from what it used to be, it was not too difficult to find a suitable cultivation method for him. Of course, for people like perfected Li Nan, even if they became Jinling's official disciple, they would not have the opportunity to practice a true cultivation method. However, perfected Li Nan did not have such extravagant hopes. He was already very satisfied to be able to advance to the late core forging stage. However, after perfected Li Nan went to the North Sea this time, he would no longer have the opportunity to return to the Central Plains. This was a rule that Jinling had set when Yingshan Immortal Academy was first established. Yingshan Immortal Academy could only be an extension of Jinling's influence. All the outstanding disciples it nurtured had to be sent to the North Sea, and Yingshan Immortal Academy could never be controlled by a Central Plains disciple. Perfected Li Nan did not care about this. All he wanted was to improve his cultivation. It did not matter where he went. At this time, he was still immersed in the excitement and shock of becoming a disciple of Tianshan Laozu and finding out about Jinling. The last place was given to a disciple who had just advanced to the 4th layer of the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows. He knew this disciple. He was one of the 3rd layer blood condensation realm disciples who had entered the Fist Valley. Now that he had advanced to the 4th layer of the blood condensation realm, he had the qualifications to become Jinling's disciple. Hence, he was sent back to the North Sea. Lu Ping was a little surprised. Although the Immortal Academy would not let the local disciples take charge, there was no need to send them to the North Sea so quickly. Moreover, the original plan was to send the local disciples to the North Sea once they advanced to the core forging stage. Why was it so urgent now? Perfected Li Nan was already familiar with Lu Ping's endless methods, so when he heard Sun Zichuan's words, he had a look of agreement. This spiritual liquid was actually a failed product of Lu Ping's attempt to create a new type of spiritual liquid. Originally, he had used the juice of the golden nuts and the spirit demon peaches, and then mixed it with various other plant essences in different proportions. Originally, he had wanted to use it for himself, but it didn't seem to have any effect on him. Instead, he had wasted a golden toughness pill and a spirit demon peach. Fortunately, these things weren't completely wasted. At least they could be used on blood condensation adepts. The tide of Mara had caused a huge disaster to the training world on the north bank of the Yulon River. Many unranked clans had been wiped out by the combined forces of the Azuras and the Xioma demonic cultivators. Even some of the clans that had barely reached the level of a small-scale power had their gates broken through, and countless of their disciples had died. Even mid-sized clans like the Gu clan had lost their Dharma adepts. It was clear to see how terrifying this tide of Mara had been. On the north bank of the Yulon River, the only sect that didn't suffer any losses during the Mara disaster was the Spiritual Martial Sect. After the Spiritual Martial Sect displayed their full strength to the cultivators of Hebei, they no longer hid their strength and bided their time. Instead, they sent messengers to communicate with the Holy Lands, preparing to establish their status as a large sect. Once the spiritual martial sect confirmed their status as a large sect, the spiritual martial sect would be the only large sect in Hebei. According to the rules of the Great Calamity, the entire Middle Earth would be led by the 5 great holy lands to wage a great war against the devil Luo. The various large forces were the spokesmen that the 5 great holy lands used to deploy the various cultivation forces in the Middle Earth. They would receive the full support of the 5 great holy lands, so the spirit martial sect could take this opportunity to clean up the entire Hebei cultivation world and establish their own position in the Hebei cultivation world. The Hebei cultivation world must become a pile of loose sand. Otherwise, if the spiritual martial sect succeeds, then once the Immortal Academy rises, our sect will definitely be suppressed by the combined forces of the various sects under the spiritual martial sect. We might even be suppressed by the 5 holy lands. Then, it will be difficult for our sect to establish a foothold in the Middle Earth. Liang Tianfeng Laozu paused for a moment, then continued, "The Middle Earth is rich and populous. In just a dozen years, other than the fact that the Immortal Academy's own system is not complete, it has already become self-sufficient in cultivation resources. It has even supported our sect with a batch of spirit herbs and low-grade spirit materials. Our sect must not give up on establishing a sphere of influence in the Middle Earth. Just look at the Crystal Palace, and you will know how difficult it is for overseas forces to establish a sphere of influence in the Middle Earth. The Heavenly Moon sect has blocked the Crystal Palace for thousands of years, and one of the 5 holy lands behind the Heavenly Moon sect, the Avalon of 5 Elements, has yet to make a move. One must know that the Crystal Palace is a huge sect that is as famous as the 5 holy lands of the Middle Earth. Therefore, the spiritual martial sect must fail this time. Not long after sending off Taoist Master Lu Xianyuan, the various sects in the Hebei cultivation world joined hands to encircle and annihilate Mara was getting closer and closer. Taoist Master Liang Tianfeng, who had been traveling in the Hebei cultivation world for a year, had finally returned. The few Laozu once again sat together to discuss, while Lu Ping, Xiantian, Xianbei, and Xinyu, the 4 late-stage core-forging 3rd-generation disciples of Jinling, were also present. Taoist Master Xian Kai had taken over Taoist Master Lu Xuanyuan's position as the Mountain Elder of the Immortal Academy, so she was able to participate. After listening to Liang Tianfeng Laozu's analysis of the situation in the entire Hebei cultivation world, as well as his opinion of the spirit martial sect, Guotianshan Laozu smiled and said, "Originally, I had planned to let junior brother Tianqing oversee the Immortal Academy. Senior brother Liang and the old man, one in the open and one in the dark, would first plot against the various sects Laozu, causing the various sects to fight against each other. Now, it seems that the situation has become even more complicated." Chu Tianqing Laozu's eyes lit up as he laughed and said, "Lock the mountain gate tightly, then tighten the mountain gate." After the old man advanced to the Dharma phase, his hands were itchy. This time, it would be good to see the methods of the Dharma phase cultivators of the Central Plains. Liang Tianfeng Laozu also nodded and said, "Fortunately, the other sects, especially the few powerful medium-sized forces, would definitely not want the spirit martial sect to become a large force and be under its control. This is our chance. However, this time, we will just muddy the waters and let the various sects and the spirit martial sect fight to the death. It would be best if all the cultivators from other places who came to encircle Mara were also involved. The more chaotic the situation is, the more advantageous it is for us." "There are cultivators from other regions participating in the encirclement of Mara?" Lu Ping asked in surprise. Among the few 3rd-generation disciples present, only Lu Ping had the right to interrupt the conversation of the 3 Laozu. Liang Tianfeng Laozu smiled and said, "That's not surprising. Although it is dangerous to encircle Mara, it is also a great opportunity. You are also someone who has fought with the demonic cultivators and the Shura, so you must have obtained a lot of good things from them, right?" Lu Ping thought of the weapons condensed from the essence of the various attributes on the Shura's body, especially the blood Shura of the Dharma phase. Each of their weapons had the power of a spirit treasure, which was obviously a great temptation for the Dharma phase cultivators. Although the Blood Shura's weapons had to go through some complicated processes before they could be used by the cultivators, to be able to have a quasi-spirit treasure with him, this time it was all worth it. As for the treasures on the Dharma phase blood demons, Lu Ping only knew about the soul crystal. As for the other things, Lu Ping did not know, because the body of the blood demon that he and Jiang Tianlin Laozu had attacked had been taken away by Jiang Laozu. At this time, Guotianshan Laozu turned to Lu Ping and said, "This time, the encirclement of Mara was proposed by the spiritual martial sect and the other 5 strongest medium-sized forces, and the 12 small forces in the Hebei cultivation world all responded to it. The Celestial Academy is now one of the 12 small forces in the Hebei cultivation world, so the Celestial Academy will also have to send at least 1 late core forging adept and 1 Dharma adept to encircle Mara. That will be the 2 of us." Beside him, Xintian Zhenren said with some surprise, "The 18 families will each send 1 Dharma adept. Doesn't that mean there are 18 Dharma Laozu?" Guotianshan Laozu laughed and said, "More than that? The 12 small forces will each send 1 Dharma Laozu, and the 5 medium-sized forces will send 1 mid-Dharma adept and 1 early Dharma adept for a total of 2 Laozu. As for the spiritual martial sect, as the main initiator of this operation, there will be 3 Laozus. One of them, a late Dharma adept, Wu Lingfeng, will be the leader of this encirclement of Mara." When everyone heard this lineup, they all gasped. Xinbei Zhenren murmured, "With a total of 25 Dharma Laozus, what can't they flatten with such a lineup?" Liang Tianfeng Laozu looked at his disciple with dissatisfaction and said, "You find it hard to believe? Sigh, no wonder. It is indeed rare to see such a grand event in the North Sea. However, this does not include those who volunteered to participate in this operation, as well as those who came from other regions. Otherwise, the scale of this operation would be even larger." 3 days later, the Yingshan Immortal Academy announced that they would be sealing their mountain and activating the protective array. They left behind 3 late core forging adepts, Xintian Zhenren, Xinbei Zhenren, and Xuanyu Zhenren, to guard the sect. The Mountain Universe sect also sealed their mountain. The Mountain Universe sect only had 1 Dharma adept, Yushang Laozu. After taking away 1 or 2 late core forging adepts, the Mountain Universe sect had no choice but to seal their mountain. Liang Tianfeng and Chu Tiancheng, the 2 Laozus, had already left the Immortal Academy. Guotianshan Laozu and Yushang Laozu met up with the Gu clan adepts and headed in the direction of the spiritual martial sect. At this time, Lu Ping was swimming along the Ying River, admiring the beautiful scenery on both sides of the river. When he heard that one of the 2 Dharma adepts that the Gu clan had sent out was actually Gu Chang Laozu, he had decisively requested to act alone. Although Lu Ping was very confident in his ability to disguise himself, he did not have much confidence in facing a mid-Dharma adept. The Ying River was a tributary of the Yulon River. The Ying River meandered down for thousands of miles before merging into the Yulon River. When he thought of the Yulon River, Lu Ping thought of the Koi Zhenren who had fallen at his hands, as well as the secret map that he had obtained from the Koi Zhenren. Chapter 724. The Shura was bloodthirsty, and the demonic cultivator devoured souls. In fact, the Shura and the demonic cultivator had another big hobby, and that was spirit devouring. That was why there was a saying in the cultivation world, Mara spirit devouring. Therefore, when the Shura and the demonic cultivator stopped wreaking havoc in the cultivation world and escaped to somewhere far away or gathered in one place, it meant that the place where Mara stayed must have a spirit vein gathering. The higher the number of demonic luos gathered at a location, the higher the quality of the spirit vein there would definitely be. The higher the quality of the spirit vein, the more abundant the cultivation resources produced by the spirit vein would be. There might even be spirit stone veins among them. At the intersection of the Yulon River and the Ying River, the terrain of this area was much lower than the surrounding plains. Every time the flood season of the Yulon River and the Ying River arrived, this area would become the place where the 2 rivers would flood. Over time, this place would become a swamp, and the Yulon River would split into several small streams that flowed into the Yulon River. And after the Shura and demonic cultivators that were wreaking havoc in Hebei were repelled by the cultivators of the various sects, they gathered in groups in this wetland called the Ingyu Swamp. This time, the battle for the spirit vein was also one of the goals of the various sects to encircle Mara. Moreover, with so many Shura and demonic cultivators gathered in this swamp, most cultivators believed that there was at least a large spirit vein hidden in this swamp. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many Mara to be attracted to this place. On the 9th of September, the various sects of the Hebei cultivation world gathered outside the Ingyu Swamp and began to encircle the demonic cultivators and Shura hidden in the swamp. Before this, there were already cultivators continuously gathering towards a small town called Chihi Town outside the swamp. The small town was bustling with noise because most of the Dharma cultivators from the various sects in Hebei would meet at the spiritual martial sect and then head towards the Ingyu Swamp. Chihi Town had instead become a gathering place for all sorts of rogue cultivators and small groups. After Lu Ping's arrival, many places in the small town had been opened up by the cultivators as a place for private transactions. They were taking advantage of the great movement of the entire Hebei region's cultivation world to exchange for what they needed. Lu Ping was rather interested in this sort of marketplace that was like a marketplace for mortals. With his current knowledge and experience, even ordinary Dharma adepts might not be able to match up to him. Everyone was curious and hoped to pick up some hidden treasures from these marketplaces. Naturally, Lu Ping was no exception. However, Lu Ping was still a little cautious when he looked at the small town in front of him. This kind of trading market was formed spontaneously because there wasn't a strong force presiding over it. Hence, the order was often extremely chaotic. There were even cases of people turning against each other and refusing to acknowledge their debts. Here, strength was often the key. Lu Ping laughed involuntarily. Although he was alone and in the eyes of outsiders, he might be an easy target to bully, but with his current strength, as long as it was not a Dharma adept, he would not care about 3 to 5 ordinary late core forging adepts. If there really was someone who did not open his eyes, he would just send them away. This was because most of the cultivators here were prepared to follow after Laozu and enter the Ingyu Swamp to take advantage of the situation. However, the Ingyu Swamp was filled with danger. The danger inside was not only from Mara, but also from the ferocious beasts and even demons hidden in the swamp. Therefore, this spontaneous marketplace was mostly filled with all sorts of healing, recovery, and antidotes. There were also all sorts of treasures, talismans, and other items that could temporarily increase a cultivator's strength. Of course, there were also all sorts of other cultivation items, but compared to these two, there were far fewer. Before the Ingyu Swamp was occupied by Mara, it had been a buffer zone between the human race and the Yulon River demon race. There were many ferocious beasts that had yet to gain sentience, but were extremely powerful. There were even rumors that the spirit-taming sex cultivators had once appeared in the Ingyu Swamp. However, the Ingyu Swamp was also a treasure trove. Throughout the years, it had attracted a large number of adventuring cultivators in search of various cultivation resources. This time, the North Sea's cultivation world had entered the Ingyu Swamp on a large scale. In addition to encircling Mara and searching for the large spirit veins and cultivation resources Mara had occupied, another important reason was to completely occupy the Ingyu Swamp and expel the demon race's forces, turning it into the territory of Hebei's cultivation world. Lu Ping casually strolled through the small town, inspecting the various stalls set up on both sides of the road. Naturally, there were very few items that caught Lu Ping's attention. Although there were a few items that Lu Ping felt were worth it, there were also a few stocks of 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs and top-grade spiritual materials. Although they had been mistaken as low prices, Lu Ping would not take advantage of them. At this moment, Lu Ping's face showed a hint of helplessness. He looked around and found that no one was paying attention to him. Then, he walked towards a remote corner of the town. After a while, when Lu Ping came out again, he was followed by 2 excited young girls. On Lu Ping's shoulder was a fat mid-stage blood condensation realm rat demon. These 2 young girls were Lu Taohua and Lu Qin'er. Lu Qin'er had always been a lawless person. She couldn't bear the loneliness of staying in the House of Gold for a long time. Lu Taohua, on the other hand, had never seen the prosperity of the human world. She was tempted by Lu Qiner's words, so she wanted to come out and take a look. Although Lu Ping was helpless, he didn't want his spirit pet to be a canary in a cage. He could only let the two of them play behind him. However, to prevent their identities from being leaked, especially Lu Qiner's identity as a spirit demon, Lu Ping gave them 2 demon transformation chakrams. The magical thing about the demon transformation chakram was that when a transformed demon cultivator wore it, they wouldn't be exposed. When a human cultivator wore it, the demon cultivator would think that they were the same kind. Lu Ping originally had 3 demon transformation chakrams, but Zhang Tianlin took one from him when he left the North Sea. It was said that his teacher, Lu Tianling, wanted to use it. Lu Ping naturally didn't dare to neglect it, so he only had 2 left. Lu Qiner and Lu Qiner played with Dabeo in the small town. When they saw so many cultivators setting up stalls and selling all kinds of items, they couldn't help but become interested. They focused all their attention on the stalls on both sides of the street. Lu Ping followed behind the 3 of them and let them play. He also wanted to take the opportunity to test their knowledge. The cultivators setting up stalls around were all people with good taste. When they saw that Lu Ping was following behind them calmly and didn't point out anything, they all thought that Lu Qiner and Lu Qiner were rich young ladies who went out to play. They secretly thought that they might be a fat sheep, so they all called them over to their stalls to have a look and encouraged them to buy all kinds of cultivation items from their stalls. Unexpectedly, the 2 sisters were so easy to fool. Although Lu Qiner was the strongest in terms of cultivation techniques, she was the worst in terms of knowledge. However, she had followed Lu Ping for a long time and had seen a lot of things. Lu Qiner had been in human form for 10 years and took care of the spiritual herb garden for Lu Ping. Lu Ping had given her a lot of ancient books about spiritual herbs. In addition, she was a spiritual peach tree, so she was naturally able to distinguish between good and bad spiritual herbs. There was no need to mention Dabeo. Dabeo had been with Lu Ping for the longest time and was also the most trusted by Lu Ping. He had seen most of the treasures Lu Ping obtained. Therefore, it could be said that among all of Lu Ping's spiritual pets, Dabeo's strength was the worst, but his knowledge was the best. Many cultivators tried to pass off some things as high-grade items, but they were all exposed by Lu Qiner and the others on the spot, making these people embarrassed. There were also those who flew into a rage out of humiliation. However, before they could vent their anger, Lu Qiner's aura surged and her mid-core forging cultivation erupted. Many of the surrounding cultivators who were jeering shut their mouths. It was not that no one could deal with Lu Qiner, but how old did Lu Qiner look? At such a young age, she had such an amazing cultivation. If she didn't have a tyrannical background, who would believe it? At this time, everyone remembered that Lu Ping was following behind this little sister, but he didn't speak. When they swept him with their divine sense, they found that the person in front of them was like a boundless sea. They couldn't see the bottom and only felt that he was unfathomable. Everyone put away their thoughts of deceiving them and began to introduce some valuable things to the 2 of them. This time, Lu Qiner couldn't distinguish them. However, although Lu Qiner couldn't distinguish them, there was little Peach Blossom next to her. Although Lu Taohua hadn't been in human form for long, she could keep her heart. She had been in human form for 10 years. On weekdays, she took care of Lu Ping's spiritual grass garden and read some ancient books on spiritual plants collected by Lu Ping. In addition, Lu Taohua was a spirit beast in human form, so she was very sensitive to spiritual materials such as plants. Since she didn't know something, she could distinguish between good and bad through her qi talent. After a few rounds of negotiation, not only did Lu Taohua not lose out, but she also picked up a lot of things. For example, she mistook a 1,000-year-old spiritual grass for a 500-year-old one, and some spiritual grass that were very similar but had opposite medicinal properties. She could even distinguish between some spiritual materials such as plants. If there was something that even Lu Taohua couldn't identify, then it would be Dabeo's time to perform. However, Dabeo was only a mid-blood condensation demon beast that hadn't transformed yet, so he didn't dare to openly appraise these items. He only secretly transmitted his voice to Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua. The 2 of them walked half a street and even picked up a few 3,000-year-old spiritual grass. However, Lu Qiner was a talkative person. She didn't keep it to herself and instead showed off proudly. This made the cultivators who sold the spiritual grass to them very depressed. If it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of the two beautiful girls in front of them, these people might have beaten them up on the street and taught them a lesson. Lu Ping looked at the two of them and smiled bitterly. Although the cultivators who were picked up by the two of them seemed to have admitted defeat, Lu Ping didn't think that these people would give up just like that. Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua had made dozens of transactions along the way and spent hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. This kind of wealth was enough to make people want to take the risk. Lu Ping wasn't afraid of these people. He just found it troublesome. However, looking at the two girls' excited expressions, Lu Ping didn't have the heart to interrupt them. Chapter 725. Although Lu Ping had seen thousands of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs in the Fist Valley, and although the Central Plains was much richer than the North Sea, 3,000-year-old spirit herbs were considered treasures to any cultivator. For those core forging and blood condensation cultivators, their value was even higher. With Debao's help, Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua actually managed to pick up a dozen 3,000-year spirit herbs from the pile of miscellaneous items. For those blood condensation realm cultivators and early core forging realm cultivators who thought they were 1,000-year or even 500-year spirit herbs, this was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue. The corners of their eyes twitched uncontrollably. A few cultivators, who seemed to be a group, slowly followed behind the two little girls. Although the two little girls' cultivation bases were not low, these people were obviously used to sneak attacks. Clearly, they were not afraid of some rookie cultivators who were stronger than them but had underestimated the dangers of the cultivation world. As for the forces behind them, they were originally rogue cultivators who had fled to the ends of the earth. After doing this, who could do anything to them? However, to be these two girls, the young man behind them was an eyesore. Flower protector? Although they couldn't see through his cultivation level, the disciples of these large forces had a lot of treasures on them. Moreover, they were often people with high standards but low abilities. It was a good opportunity to do this business together. However, before these people could surround Lu Ping inadvertently coughed twice. Suddenly, these people stopped in their tracks. Their eyes suddenly popped out, and then they stood motionlessly in the middle of the street. The five of them had originally formed a semicircle around Lu Ping and were slowly moving towards him from behind. Previously, they didn't notice the crowd on the street, but now that the five of them had suddenly stopped in the middle of the street, they blocked most of the street. Hey, don't block the way. What are you standing here for? Sir, please move aside. I have urgent matters to attend to. The five cultivators continued to ignore him. As a temporary gathering point for the cultivators from Hebei province to charge into Rich Jade Swamp, the number of cultivators gathered here was not small. In just a moment, over 20 cultivators were blocked in the middle of the street. Most of these cultivators were rogue cultivators. They might not be strong, but they were ferocious enough. Otherwise, how could they have survived until now? Those who made a living on the edge of a knife would have killed a few people, and how many of them were good-tempered? Someone immediately started cursing, and a few hot-tempered ones pushed the five of them. Plop. Thump. This is... The five of them were pushed to the ground almost at the same time. Only then did everyone realize that something was wrong with the five of them. Their eyes were wide open and protruding, and their ears were bleeding. Were they dead? The onlookers immediately felt a chill run down their spines. These five people had obviously been ambushed at the same time while walking on the street, but the way they died was too strange. How could they suddenly die in an instant? There were quite a few experts among the onlookers, but they knew that with their own abilities, they would definitely not be able to do this. Some of the more observant people immediately realized that the position where the five of them had been standing before seemed to be secretly surrounding and ambushing someone. However, it was clear that they had kicked an iron plate and lost their lives in the process. Some quick-witted people immediately thought of the two girls who had caused a sensation on the street just now. Could it be that these five people wanted to rob those two girls, but were killed by them without batting an eyelid? In the distance on the street, there were still quite a few cultivators who had set up stalls, eagerly greeting the two girls. Although these two girls had vicious eyes, they were generous. As long as they took a look at something, they would basically be able to pay a reasonable price. Of course, if the cultivators who set up the stalls were blind and sold a 3,000-year-old spiritual herb as a 500-year-old spiritual herb, they would naturally be happy to take advantage of it. There were quite a few people who had ideas about the two girls. However, after seeing the fate of these 5 people, they decisively gave up on their previous thoughts. When a knowledgeable cultivator saw the 5 people who had fallen to the ground, he was immediately surprised and said, "Aya, isn't this the 5 tigers of Mount Xing? The spirit martial sect has offered a bounty of 1,000,000 spirit stones and 3 spirit communication magic treasures to take the lives of these 5 people. How could they die on the streets and not want the bounty of the spirit martial sect?" What? These are the 5 notorious bandits of the 5 tigers of Mount Xing? Aya, that's true. How could he die here? The strength of 5 middle-stage core forging cultivators. Some of the people who had ulterior motives were even more terrified. These 5 tigers of Mount Xing were quite famous existences among the rogue cultivators of the core forging stage in the Hubei cultivation world. Legend has it that each of these 5 people had reached the middle stage of the core forging stage, and the leader had even reached the peak of the 5th level of the core forging stage. These 5 people had been doing some business in the Hubei cultivation world all year round, causing many forces in the Hubei cultivation world to want to get rid of them. Unfortunately, these 5 people were not weak. The 5 of them had a set of joint attacks. They were also extremely cunning. Their whereabouts were erratic. As a result, they had been free and unfettered in the Hubei cultivation world for many years. Legend has it that these 5 people even had the lives of 3 late-stage core forging cultivators in their hands. Among them, the 5 of them were the most proud of secretly killing a late-stage core forging cultivator of the Spirit Martial sect. This provoked the Spirit Martial sect to issue a bounty for the lives of these 5 people. However, for several years, these 5 people were still at large. However, they had restrained themselves a lot. The Hubei cultivation world had rarely heard of these 5 people. Originally, some people thought that these 5 people had already hidden outside of the Hubei cultivation world. They didn't expect that these 5 people would appear here. Furthermore, they appeared in front of everyone in such a way. The streets were bustling with cultivators. There were hundreds of them, if not thousands. There was no lack of hidden dragons and crouching tigers among them. To be able to avoid these cultivators and quietly kill these 5 people, this kind of method was not something that the onlookers could hope to achieve. Could it be the young man in green behind the 2 girls? When some of the more knowledgeable people saw the bodies of these 5 people, they guessed that after their divine will was forcefully destroyed, they lost control of the inner yuan in their bodies and died from squeezing out of the core space. And to be able to destroy the divine will of 5 mid-stage core forging cultivators in one go, what kind of cultivation level was this person at? The Dharma stage? It seemed that even a normal Dharma stage cultivator could not achieve such an effect. Some of the scouts from the major forces looked at the back of the figure in green in the distance, their eyes faintly revealing a hint of awe. To have the strength of the Dharma stage at such a young age, what kind of giant was behind him? What kind of identity did the 2 little girls have to be able to have Dharma stage cultivators as bodyguards? Lu Ping's divine will swept behind him and swept past his surroundings. He found that the divine will that was spying on him and Lu Qiner had suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping's face revealed a trace of a smile. At this time, he heard someone behind him shout, "That's not right. Who took the 5 tigers of Xingshan's storage artifacts? Hurry up and hand them over." The 5 tigers of Xingshan usually do business without any capital. They must have accumulated a lot of good things in their hands. Which damned person took it away without saying a word? It was on me just now. How do you know it was still on you just now? Nonsense. I have been watching for a long time. Stop talking nonsense. Since the people who killed them don't want them, first cut off the heads of these 5 people and go to the Spirit Martial sect to collect the reward. This head is mine. Get lost. On the other side of the street, Lu Ping took 5 storage artifacts from the mouth of Debao who had just drilled out of the ground. After opening it, he casually looked at it and threw 4 of them to Debeo. The remaining one seemed to be used by the leader of the 5 tigers of Xingshan. Lu Ping rummaged through it for a while and then took out a map. On it was a map of the lush jade swamp, but it was clearly not complete. However, Lu Ping did not plan to enter the lush jade swamp with the cultivators of the other sections. Since that was the case, with this incomplete map in hand, it could save Lu Ping a lot of energy. It seemed that after the 5 tigers of Xingshan killed the cultivators of the spirit martial sect, they hid in the lush jade swamp and even built a secret cave in the swamp. It was because of this secret cave that the 5 of them escaped the massacre after Mara entered the lush jade swamp. The reason why the 5 tigers of Xingshan took the risk to enter the lush jade swamp again was for the secret cave that the 5 of them had opened in the swamp. Looking at the mark on the map that marked the secret cave of the 5 people, Lu Ping thought to himself, "No matter what, I have a place to stay." At this moment, Lu Ping frowned and looked in the direction of Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua. At this moment, the 2 of them were standing in front of a stall and seemed to be arguing with the cultivator who set up the stall. Lu Ping walked forward and did not wait for him to ask the 2 of them what happened. When he saw the person who set up the stall, Lu Ping's expression inevitably became serious. When the person who set up the stall saw Lu Ping, his eyes couldn't help but narrow. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued to bargain with Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua. This person's aura is so strange. The person who set up the stall was an unkempt man. This cultivator had obviously concealed his aura, making it impossible to see how strong he was. However, the moment Lu Ping saw this cultivator, he sharply caught a trace of his aura. "Uncle, although your mystical item is not bad, the item that Sister Qin used to exchange for it is also extraordinary. You should know that Sister Qin took out an elixir for a half-step Dharma adept. Uncle, you are a late core forging adept, right? Perhaps this elixir can heal your injuries." When the surrounding cultivators heard that this young girl was holding a half-step transcendence stage pill in her hand, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The cultivator who set up the stall was an unkempt man with a sallow face. It was obvious that he had suffered a serious internal injury. There were a few items on display in the stall. Although there weren't many items, from Lu Ping's point of view, these items were quite valuable. This unkempt man was using these items on the ground to exchange for a few pills that could heal the injuries of late core forging cultivators. Among the items was a 1-foot-tall glass bottle filled with a brown liquid. This was the treasure that Lu Qiner had her eyes on previously. She had intended to exchange a bottle of healing pills that Lu Ping had refined for a half-step transcendent stage pill. Unexpectedly, this man suddenly changed his mind. Naturally, Lu Qiner was unwilling, so they argued. When Lu Ping looked at the brown liquid in the glass bottle, his eyes narrowed. It was a mystical item like the green jade glass liquid. Qiner could only tell that it was a water-based mystical item, but she didn't know that it was as rare as the 10,000 poison liquid. Like the growing soil, it was a high-grade mystical item. Using a bottle of a half-step transcendent stage pill to exchange for it was indeed a little low. She did not even hesitate to take out the life-saving spirit pill that Lu Ping had given her. After Lu Ping's Qi of Vigor had been refined to the 7th layer, he had not been able to find a suitable spirit liquid. Therefore, he had not made any progress for many years. Lu Qiner was naturally aware of this. She had taken out the best spirit pill she had on hand in order to exchange for the spirit liquid and give it to Lu Ping to refine his Qi of Vigor. Lu Ping could not help but smile. This little girl had actually learned to care about others. However, the green jade glass liquid was extremely precious. Although the spirit pill that Lu Qiner had taken out was also extraordinary, it could not be compared to this high-grade heaven and earth wonder. When Lu Qiner heard the sloppy man in front of her, she actually calmed down and said in a deep voice, "What do you want in exchange?" The sloppy man looked at Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua's wrists again with a playful smile on his face. Then his eyes inadvertently flashed with a green light and he said, "I see that the jade bracelets on your wrists are quite good. If you two are willing to part with them, you can take this bottle of spirit liquid. When Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua heard that the person in front of them wanted the bracelets on their wrists, their expressions suddenly changed. The two shook their wrists at the same time and used their sleeves to conceal the bracelets on their wrists. As a result, it had the effect of revealing the truth. When the surrounding cultivators saw the two of them acting like this, they were even more certain that the bracelets of the two were most likely extraordinary treasures. One after another, they spread their spiritual sense over, intending to see what was going on. Although Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua were also core forging cultivators, when faced with the probing of so many cultivators with powerful divine senses, they were unable to resist for a while. The bracelets on their wrists were quickly discovered by the divine senses of others. What is this thing? Why haven't I seen it before? It doesn't look like a magic treasure. There aren't any true essence fluctuations coming from it. There aren't even any spiritual chi fluctuations. Why would this sloppy man want something like this? Hee, it can't be that this man saw these two beautiful young ladies and had some thoughts about them, right? Lu Qiner could still be considered calm. She fiercely glared at the sloppy man and grabbed Lu Taohua, who was at a loss. She said, "We're not buying it. Little sister, let's go." The sloppy man saw that Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua were about to turn around and did not stop them. Instead, he looked behind them with a serious expression. When Lu Ping saw the green light in the sloppy man's eyes, he knew that he was in trouble. The sloppy cultivator didn't see the change in Lu Ping's expression as he expected. Instead, Lu Ping had guessed his origins. The sloppy cultivator was stunned for a moment before bursting into hearty laughter and said, "So you really do have a relationship with my spirit beast sect? I wonder where your excellency obtained the demon transformation bracelet from? It is rarely seen in my sect." A faint smile appeared on Lu Ping's face and he said, "If your excellency's relationship is only with these two demon transformation bracelets, isn't it a bit far-fetched?" The sloppy cultivator didn't mind and turned to look at Lu Ping, who was glaring at him from Lu Qiner's side, and said, "The Luan clan. Could it be that your excellency is from overseas?" Without waiting for Lu Ping to answer, he looked at Lu Taohua on the other side and said, "This young lady is very strange. I am unable to see through her origins. However, since she is wearing the demon transformation bracelet on her wrist, I assume she is not from the human clan." When Lu Qiner heard that the sloppy cultivator had guessed that Lu Ping came from overseas through her, her heart thumped. However, Lu Ping pointed at Debao on the ground and said with a smile, "I also have a spiritual pet. I wonder if your excellency will think that I am from the Middle Earth after seeing it? I have long heard that the Spirit Beast sect has a secret technique that specializes in seeing through one's origins called the Green Jade Spirit Eyes. Seeing it today, it is indeed worthy of its reputation. However, with your excellency's current state, how long can you maintain this technique for?" The two of them revealed each other's identity in a few words. Lu Ping was calm and unruffled, while the sloppy cultivator was at a disadvantage because of his hidden injuries. Now that he had a request for Lu Ping's help, he couldn't help but be at a disadvantage. The cultivator cupped his hands towards Lu Ping and said, "I have experienced your excellency's methods. May I ask if your excellency is confident in treating my injuries?" Without waiting for Lu Ping to speak, the sloppy cultivator continued, "I have also consulted several alchemists. There is no lack of them like your excellency, but they all said that my injuries can be alleviated and controlled, but it is extremely difficult to treat. If your excellency is confident in treating my injuries, please feel free to take this green jade glass liquid." Lu Ping pondered for a moment. He really coveted the bottle of green jade glass liquid, but he still cautiously asked, "The Spirit Beast sect has a long heritage. It is said that their heritage is not inferior to the 5 sacred lands. Could it be that your sect does not have a sacred alchemist who can treat my injuries?" The sloppy cultivator helplessly said, "My Spirit Beast sect cultivators travel the world. Although we have fellow sect members, time cannot be delayed." "To be honest, your excellency, my injuries are much more serious than they were 2 days ago. Right now, I am only holding on to a sliver of luck in this small town. Lu Ping looked at the green jade glass liquid on the ground and nodded, saying, I am confident in treating your injuries. However, in addition to your Excellency's green jade glass liquid, I will need something else. Chapter 727. When the slovenly cultivator heard that Lu Ping had other requests, his expression immediately changed. Don't you think you're pushing your luck? Since you recognize the green jade glass liquid, you should know how precious it is. Is it not worth exchanging it for a spirit pill? Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and said, You must be joking. Right now, you're facing a situation where your cultivation base is about to be destroyed. Are you really going to give up your cultivation base for a bottle of spirit liquid? Besides, after you were injured, you didn't go to any of the large sects to ask for help. Instead, you hid in a remote place like this. There must be a reason, right? Otherwise, with your identity as a cultivator from the spirit taming sect, those sects would have to give you some face. Why would you come to this small town? The slovenly cultivator's face turned red with anger, but he couldn't say anything. He had come to the Abundance Jade Swamp with a purpose, but he didn't expect to suffer such a great loss as soon as he entered the swamp. He had almost been crippled by a sinister technique. Humph! The cultivation world of Hubei has sent a large force to hunt down Mara in the Abundance Jade Swamp. This small town is the key to entering and exiting the Abundance Jade Swamp, so it will definitely become a gathering place for cultivators. I stopped here to find someone who can treat my injuries. In fact, didn't I wait until you found me? Lu Ping calmly replied, That's a reasonable reason, but your injuries are not ordinary. Although the spirit pellet you need isn't a high-grade one, the method to concoct such a spirit pellet is extremely rare. I'm sure the alchemist you met before must have explained to you how troublesome your injuries are. The slovenly cultivator coldly snorted, but there was a look of helplessness on his face. Lu Ping's guess was not wrong. He had come to the Abundance Jade Swamp for an extremely important matter that could not be delayed. However, he didn't expect to suffer such a strange injury from the very beginning. Now, he had no choice but to compromise with Lu Ping. As such, he asked, What do you want? Spirit connecting pills. 10 spirit clearing pills. Lu Ping had a deep impression of the clear spirit pill that Tian Shuelaozu had given to the amethyst wasp king Zilon to consume in the past. This kind of unique medicinal pill of the Imperial Beast sect could be said to be famous in the cultivation world. For any spiritual pet, the clear spirit pill's effect was not inferior to the spiritual forging pill. Spirit clearing pill? 10? Don't even think about it. The sloppy cultivator's face flushed red. This kind of pill is rare even in our sect. Which of the materials needed to refine this kind of pill aren't heavenly materials and earthly treasures of the cultivation world? Not to mention 10 spirit-clearing pills. I don't even have one. Lu Ping did not expect the other party to have such a huge reaction after hearing that he wanted spirit-clearing pills. Thinking back to the time when Tian Shuelaozu had obtained 3 spirit-clearing pills, she had kept them for hundreds of years without using a single one. Even when Tian Lu Laozu had begged repeatedly, it was useless. It was only until Lu Ping's Amethyst Wasp King advanced to the core forging realm and brewed a higher-grade royal jelly did Tian Shuelaozu give one to Lu Ping. From the looks of it, this spirit-clearing pill was no small matter in the Imperial Beast sect. As Lu Ping pondered, he said, A straightforward person does not beat around the bush. With your strength, I believe that you must have some spirit-clearing pills on you. I will not ask for it for free. I will use something to exchange for it. How about one? The reason why Lu Ping was so sure that this person in front of him had some spirit-clearing pills was because when Tian Shuelaozu was roaming the Central Plains, she had met a core forging realm cultivator from the Imperial Beast sect. Furthermore, when Lu Ping saw the person in front of him, he discovered that although this person's cultivation was only at the 8th layer of the core forging realm, his strength was much stronger than the likes of enlightened Jianming and enlightened Fei Hong. Even enlightened Gu Han, who had quite a high position in the Gu clan, could not be compared to this person. With such strength, this person would definitely be one of the future Transcendence Realm cultivators in the Imperial Beast sect. With the sect's care, how could he not have some good items on him? As expected, after thinking for a while, the other party's face turned green and red before he said, I do have a few spirit-clearing pills on me. However, if you want 10 of them, this deal will not go through. At most, I will give you 3. Furthermore, I need the demon transformation bracelets from these 2 young ladies. Lu Ping was puzzled. Why do you need the demon transformation bracelet? Isn't this item unique to the Imperial Beast sect? The other party glanced at Lu Ping but did not speak. Seeing that the other party was not willing to speak, Lu Ping said awkwardly, This demon transformation bracelet is of great use to me, but I cannot give it to you. I wonder if there is anything else that you need? I only need 7 spirit-clearing pills. The sloppy cultivator looked at Lu Ping and said, Do you really have a spirit pill that can quickly heal my injuries? Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, The strange thing about your injury is that your broken meridians seem to be mending but not mending. If you use an ordinary medicinal pellet, once the medicinal energy surges through your meridians, the meridians that seem to have a sliver of hope of recovery will rupture and your cultivation base will be destroyed. Although your injury isn't fatal, if it is delayed, even if you don't lose your cultivation base, you will still be paralyzed and your cultivation base will be greatly reduced. The sloppy cultivator's face darkened. Since I cannot withstand the medicinal effect, how can I treat it? Lu Ping said unhurriedly, You mentioned earlier that you have consulted a few alchemy grandmasters. I wonder if they have mentioned to you that there is a spirit water alchemy technique in the cultivation world? The sloppy cultivator's expression suddenly became excited. You know this technique? Do you know what kind of pill can be refined using this technique to heal my injuries? Sure enough, the sloppy cultivator had heard of this alchemy technique. However, although the alchemist who told him about this technique knew of its existence, he only guessed that it could be used to cure this kind of injury. As for what kind of spirit pill would be refined with this technique, even the alchemist didn't know. Lu Ping sighed inwardly. The cultivation world of the Central Plains was not like the overseas world. Many alchemy masters in the overseas world had never even heard of the spirit water alchemy technique, let alone believed in it. Only a few knowledgeable alchemy grandmasters had heard of it, but that was all they had heard of. Lu Ping flipped his wrist and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. He took out a grape-sized pill and said, This pill is called the Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill. It is the most effective for your injuries. With that said, Lu Ping infused his true essence into the spirit core and a water elemental aura emerged from the spirit core's surface. The sloppy cultivator immediately sensed the unique spirituality of the spirit core. Lu Ping saw that the sloppy cultivator's expression relaxed. It was obvious that he knew how to differentiate the pill refined using the spirit water alchemy technique. However, he waited until now to say it. He was clearly a cautious person. The sloppy cultivator cupped his hands at Lu Ping and asked in a serious tone, I am Sang Yu. How should I address you? Lu Ping returned the greeting and said, I am Lu Ping. Greetings, Brother Sang. The sloppy cultivator, Sang Yu, exchanged the green jade glaze liquid in his hand with Lu Ping's Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill. Then he said, Brother Lu, the spirit clearing pill is indeed very important to our sect. I can only take out 3 pills. This is also the sect's rule. After all, this pill is not easy to refine. However, if Brother Lu wants these pills, you must help me with something. I know that Brother Lu is very strong. Although you are only at the 8th layer of core forging, I fear that even a 9th layer core forging cultivator is no match for you. If Brother Lu is willing to help me with this matter, I will definitely give you 3 spirit clearing pills. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't blindly agree just for 3 spirit clearing pills. Instead, he asked in a serious tone, What do you need me to do? I will be entering the lush jade swamp with the sex elders in the next few days to participate in the encirclement of Mara. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it in time. Sang Yu sensed the Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill's aura and knew that it was indeed effective. His previously gloomy expression had long since disappeared. Hearing Lu Ping's words, he laughed and said, Brother Lu, rest assured. What I want to do will also happen in the lush jade swamp. Brother Lu only needs to find an excuse to move alone in the Central Plains for a period of time. Last time, I was harmed by a vile person and gave up halfway. I even suffered a strange injury. This time, with Brother Lu's help, my chances of success will greatly increase. Of course, regardless of whether I succeed or not, I will definitely give you 3 spirit-clearing pills." Lu Ping pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "All right, I agree to this. However, where will I meet up with Brother Sang after entering the lush jade swamp?" Sang Yu handed a jade slip to Lu Ping and said, "This is a map of the lush jade swamp. The place where we will meet up is marked on the map. The cultivators of the various sects in Hebei will most likely enter the lush jade swamp tomorrow. It's hard to say whether they will succeed or not, but the lush jade swamp is vast and boundless. Without several months, it will be impossible to complete this operation. It just so happens that I will need a month to recover from my injuries. In that case, let's meet up at the appointed place in a month." Lu Ping nodded and was about to lead Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua away when he heard Sang Yu say, "Brother Lu, don't blame me for not warning you. This operation to encircle Mara in Hebei will most likely be far more complicated than you can imagine. As a cultivator of the spirit-taming sect, we have heard quite a few things. Not only will the various sects in Hebei have their own plans for this operation, but the cultivators of the south bank of the Yulon River, the cultivators of the plains downstream of the Yulon River, as well as the cultivators of the highlands upstream have all heard of the news. In addition, the monsters of the Yulon River have also appeared in the swamp. The waters here are very deep." Lu Ping thanked Sang Yu and turned to leave. Sang Yu stared at Lu Ping's back and muttered to herself, "Strange. What exactly is the background of that little girl? How is it that even my Jasper spirit eyes, which has condensed a 7th-level spiritual object, couldn't see through her? On the other hand, that Luan and that spirit-seeking mouse on the ground are quite interesting. The Luan clearly has the attributes of both wind and fire. How could the Fire Luan race, which has always prided themselves on their pure bloodline, tolerate such an unusual existence? That spirit-seeking mouse is even more strange. Although it has displayed a mid-stage blood condensation cultivation, which is already very commendable for a low-level spirit-seeking mouse, it seems that this mouse has been sealed by some special method. I still can't see through it. This person's methods are really hard to fathom. Could it be that the spirit-seeking mouse's cultivation is even higher?" Sang Yu pondered for a moment, but still couldn't come up with an answer. She continued to murmur to herself, "It seems that after this mission is completed, I might as well make friends with this person. It's fine if it's just a few strange spiritual pets, but the most commendable thing is that none of his spiritual pets have been sealed off. They are still free. This will be able to win the goodwill of the spirit-taming sect." Chapter 728. After the incident with Sang Yu, Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua were no longer in the mood to continue shopping. They followed Lu Ping to find a clean inn to stay in. However, there were no spirit veins in this small town, and the spirit qi in the air was thin. Moreover, there were thousands of practitioners of different levels in the town, so there was no room for people to train. Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua informed Lu Ping of their plans and returned to the House of Gold. The fact that the practitioners of the spirit beast taming sect could see through Lu Qiner's real body with the demon transformation bracelet reminded Lu Ping that the demon transformation bracelet belonged to the spirit beast taming sect, and Sang Yu had only noticed the shrunken demon transformation bracelet on Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua before noticing that they were demons. However, since Sang Yu could see through Lu Qiner's identity, it was hard to say that other practitioners did not have secret techniques like the spirit beast taming sect's Jasper spiritual pupils. In fact, Lu Ping's own 3 pure eyes was not inferior to the Jasper spiritual pupils, but both were focused on different things. Fortunately, Ancestor Long Huai had placed a seal on Lu Taohua all those years ago, and it was able to conceal her identity. Unless she encountered a cultivator that was even more formidable than Ancestor Long Huai, otherwise, even the spirit beast sect's jadeite spirit eyes would be useless against her. However, Lu Ping's request for Lu Taohua to wear the demon transformation bracelet was not completely useless. Although the Longhuai ancestor had hidden her identity, it could not change the fact that she was a demon. Without the demon transformation bracelet, the secret that Lu Taohua was not a human practitioner would be exposed. At least if she was seen as a demon, she would be protected by Lu Ping's status as a spiritual pet. If her identity as a demon was exposed, even a Dharma adept would not be able to protect her. Early the next morning, the entire little town was in an uproar. Today, the 18 minor forces of Hebei's cultivation world would enter Richjade Swamp to encircle and annihilate Mara. Cultivators from all over gathered in the little town, ready to follow behind the 25 forces. As soon as Lu Ping walked out of the inn, the void in front of him trembled. Under the horrified gazes of the surrounding cultivators, the void rippled like water, and from the rippling void, a sound-transmitting sword suddenly stretched out. Teleportation was a technique used by Dharma adepts. Because of yesterday's events, there were many people in the town who had been waiting for Lu Ping. Seeing Lu Ping nonchalantly accept the sound transmission sword, Lu Ping said something to the sound transmission sword. Then, he pushed the sound transmission sword into the spatial ripples and disappeared. Immediately after, the turbulent spatial ripples calmed down. Luckily, Zhou Donghuang had not been blinded by greed yesterday and had not tried to snatch the treasures from him and the two girls. This person indeed had a Dharma adept backing him up. However, where had the girls who had been following him gone? After Lu Ping recovered the sound transmission sword that Guo Tianshan and Lao Zu had sent, his face was filled with worry. From the information that Guo Tianshan and Lao Zu had sent, it seemed that what Sang Yu had said yesterday was true. Furthermore, the situation was more complicated than Lu Ping had imagined. There was no lack of Dharma adepts among the cultivators who had heard the news. Under such circumstances, just Guo Tianshan, Liang Tianfeng, and Chu Tianqing, the three early Dharma adepts, would Lao Zu be able to cause much trouble? If these three Lao Zu were to be exposed, there was a possibility that they would die. Have you heard? This time, under the Spiritual Martial Sects Initiative, 18 small and medium-sized sects in Hebei have come to encircle and annihilate Mo Luo. There are 25 Dharma adepts, led by a late Dharma adept of the spiritual martial sect into the Yingyu Swamp. That's not all. This time, besides the 25 Laozu, each sect has also sent a total of 81 late core forging adepts. It is said that these adepts are all at least at the 8th level of the core forging stage, and have the potential to become Dharma adepts in their respective sections. This time, the sects in Hebei have put in a lot of effort to surround and kill Mara. Humph! There are various cultivators hiding within this little town. It is not just the loose cultivators from the Hebei region. There is also a considerable number of cultivators from the Hunan region, the flatlands downstream and the upper reaches of the Hunan region. Who knows how many more of them are hiding around this little town? This siege on Mo Luo will surely be a bloodbath. I wonder how many people will survive? Listening to the discussions of the surrounding cultivators, Lu Ping extended his divine will outwards. Indeed, he found that there were far more cultivators in this small town than he had imagined. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows and looked up towards the northern sky. Immediately, he heard a loud shout from a cultivator in the distance. They're here. The cultivators of the 18 sects are here. The cultivators in the small town looked into the distance and saw 25 streaks of rainbow light streak across the sky, leaving long shadows in the sky. In an instant, they flew over the small town and flew towards the Yingyu Swamp. Indeed, there were 25 Dharma adepts. An overwhelming pressure swept over from afar, and the cultivators who had gathered in the small town let out a roar like a tsunami. Without waiting for these cultivators to react, the streaks of light had already flown over the small town, flying in the direction of the Yingyu Swamp. For most cultivators, this was the only time in their lives that they would experience such a grand scene. Seeing the 25 streaks of Dharma adepts disappear into the horizon, many streaks of light shot up from the small town and the vast plains around it, chasing after the 25 Laozu at high speed. However, just as these streaks of light disappeared, the cultivators in the small town suddenly exclaimed, "Someone else is coming." I'm afraid they are the 81 late core forging stage cultivators from the 18 sects. When the crowd looked up, they saw more than 10 streaks of 5-colored streaks of light whistling through the sky. Although these streaks of light were not as vast as the previous streaks of 7-colored streaks of light, there were more of them. Together, they looked like countless meteors streaking across the sky. When the streaks of light flew over the small town and headed towards the Inyu swamp, the cultivators in the small town and the surrounding area were completely stirred. Hundreds of streaks of light shot up into the sky in an instant, following the streaks of light from before as they flew towards the Inyu swamp. Then, an endless stream of streaks of light rose up from the surroundings, forming a colorful curtain of light that stretched all the way to the horizon. Even though Lu Ping was considered to be experienced and knowledgeable among cultivators of the same level, when he saw the huge scene of cultivators flying up one after another, he felt his scalp go numb. The cultivators who entered the Inyu swamp first might face greater danger, but there was no doubt that they would have more opportunities and gains. Those who dared to follow the cultivators from the various sects in Hebei into the Inyu swamp were naturally cultivators who had some confidence in their own strength. Among the thousands of cultivators, not a single one was below the core forging stage. In fact, there were very few early core forging stage cultivators. Lu Ping was not in a hurry to enter the swamp. As he turned to leave, he heard a cultivator next to him whispering, "Strange, didn't they say that there were 81 late core forging stage cultivators from the 18 sects? Why were there only 80 streaks of light just now?" Lu Ping smiled and a streak of light shot up into the sky, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. However, there were still streaks of light rising up from the small town as they headed towards the Inyu swamp. The Inyu swamp was a place where the Yulon River and the Abundant River released their floodwaters during the flood season. As a result, not only was the swamp vast, but it was also covered in mud all year round. During the rainy season, the swamp would become a swamp. Many of the sundries from the two rivers accumulated there, causing the plants growing in the swamp to wither and rot every year before being soaked in the muddy water. Over time, a faint layer of poisonous miasma rose up above the Inyu swamp. Although the toxicity of the miasma was weak and even ordinary cultivators could resist it, the miasma was highly permeable and well hidden. Ordinary cultivators would usually ignore it after noticing it. However, after staying in the swamp for a long time, the toxicity would eventually seep into the cultivator's flesh and bones and lay dormant, causing harm to the cultivator. The Inyu swamp was vast and dangerous. If Mara were to hide in it, it would be difficult for the cultivators to encircle him in a short period of time. However, the sects in Hebei still discussed the encirclement deadline of 3 months. They were considering the miasma that permeated the swamp. 3 months was the time limit for the miasma to seep into a cultivator's blood. Naturally, the miasma didn't have any effect on Lu Ping. On the contrary, Lu Ping's interest was piqued when he noticed the miasma. The poisonous miasma wasn't too strong, but it was tenacious. Not only that, the poison was extremely stealthy and permeable. If it weren't for Lu Ping's 1,000-poison serpent, which was also known as the mother of all poisons, he wouldn't have been bothered by the poisonous miasma. Lu Ping's protective energy barrier, the myriad poison meteorite star, could absorb all kinds of toxins to strengthen himself. The myriad poison potion in the Golden House was the same. More importantly, once the toxins in the myriad poison potion were strong enough, it would automatically condense into a mid-grade heaven-rank spirit treasure, the myriad wonder dew. This was what Lu Ping valued the most. After he grasped the refining method of the spirit forging pill, the biggest problem he faced was the lack of a heaven-rank, saint-rank spirit treasure like the myriad wonder jade nectar. Previously, he had 3/4 of the myriad wonder jade nectar on him, totaling 27 drops. But after refining several furnaces of spirit forging pills, apart from the 3 drops of myriad wonder jade nectar that Jinling had accumulated for thousands of years, the remaining 3 furnaces of myriad wonder jade nectar were his own. This was also the reason why he wasn't willing to hand over more spirit forging pills to the sect. With so many myriad wonder jade nectar appearing, Lu Ping still couldn't grasp the consequences of this impact. After a short while, Lu Ping's flight light entered the brimming jade swamp. He propped up the myriad poison meteorite chi and naturally ignored the imperceptible miasma around him. His flight light didn't slow down in the slightest as he flew straight into the depths of the swamp. At this time, after the invasion of a large number of cultivators, the swamp was no longer as desolate and lonely as it was before. The swamp seemed to have suddenly become lively. The dull roars of spells, the crazy roars of beasts, all kinds of mournful screams, and the roars of cultivators resounded from all over the swamp and reverberated in all directions. Lu Ping swept out with his divine sense and went straight to a muddy pond 10 kilometers to the left. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.